Okay, where's my headphones? Good grief. All right, thank you. All right, it is a Friday. Okay, and it's the 1st of May. And we've moved in. We are definitely into spring now. I just got a big text yesterday about it's time to plant your tomatoes if we're in this area. So I need to plant some tomatoes this year. I'd like to have some. I love tomatoes. Do you eat tomatoes raw a lot?
Only country thing that I am.
Yeah, I love tomatoes, man. I really do.
I remember when I was a kid getting on the tractor with my Uncle Jerry because we lived in Minner, Arkansas.
Uh-huh.
And I was in St. Louis for the school year, and then I'd come spend the summer and holidays.
That's got to be what you want.
Weird. Let me tell you, I came back down as I got older, and as a teenager, people were like, "You Yankee," and I had to go one. I was a bad girl, so I had to go one year down there in Hoxie. I went to Hoxie, and we had fights about North and South, all that in history class.
It's so bizarre,
right?
To be honest, because here. Let me just talk about when racism was prevalent in this country. The only difference between the North and the South, to be honest with you, was in the South it was visible. In the North, they hid it.
You know what? Like when I was growing up in St. So I had both. I was in the South. There was a couple of black folks in my class. Nobody was treated different. They went to the same parties we did. They did the same stuff. They went to the same school activities. The adults may have been, but I didn't witness that. And, I'm 52 years old. But in St. Louis, my best friend, one of my best friends in school, Carla, if you're listening, Carla, hello. I haven't seen her in years, but she's on my Facebook. But she was the first person that I knew to date a person of color.
Uh-huh.
And I loved him. He was one of our friends. He fit in. But it wasn't everyone else judged her for it. You know what I mean? Like it was interesting. But it
took a long time for interracial dating to become interracial marriages.
But they were 16 and that was in the 90s and they just recently split up.
Yeah.
They had the life and everything. So it wasn't just, it was love.
Yeah, well, I understand. I'm just saying, when I grew up, again, I'm in my 70s. And I knew that up north, there was just as much racism going on as there was down south. It just was, they hid it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they were cordial about it.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was like, you're really a talented individual, but we don't have an opening for you yet.
Now, see, that is racism, Dave. When you take someone's resume and you throw it in the trash without giving them opportunity.
And there was a lot of that. That's what I'm saying.
And that's racism.
That went on all the time.
Not liking Obama's policies does not make me racist.
Or you'd be out with your buds, and when they were out of the earshot of everybody else, they were talking like a member of the Klan.
Oh, I've heard some Southern Democrats. Let me tell you, my ex's family, the N-word like it was nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And at the time, my son was dating a mixed girl, and I was like, can y'all please not talk like that? Yeah. Like, that's just, you're horrible. You're sitting there voting for Obama and then saying the N-word like it's just nothing. And those were Southern Democrats in Louisiana.
Did you see this race that's going on in Maine? The lady that is the governor was going to run for the Senate, and she dropped out of the race.
Yeah, I saw that.
And the person that the Democrats now have coalesced around is a guy walking around with a Nazi tattoo on.
Yeah.
And you remember Hegseth when he was up for Secretary of War, and they were talking to him in front of the Senate committee and stuff, and they were asking him about the Christian symbol that he has. I think it's on his right side on his chest, and it's I think it's a Crusader's cross is what it is, and that was one of the biggest things that they were going against Hegseth with. He can't be Secretary of War. He'll be against all the Jews. He'll be against all this and be against that. And then, and last but not least, now they're going behind a guy who admits he is a communist and who said that the reason he has a swastika tattoo is that he got drunk one day and he thought he was getting a skull, but instead they put a swastika on him. Just weird.
That's crazy.
It's another example of the leftists and their propensity to project what they believe on everybody else, and then they condemn them for it. That's exactly how they operate, and I'm to the point that I'm tired of it, and I've put up with it. I'm on the short end of the stick as far as my life goes, so I'm not afraid to say it out loud that the Democrats have always been the more racist party in this country.
I think so. I really think so.
I mean, if you look at, they love Byrd still to this day, and he was a head of the Klan in West Virginia. I knew that because I went to school in the eastern side of Kentucky, about 50 miles from Huntington, West Virginia, and he's venerated down there. And he was as racist as they came.
I like I said, I hadn't heard that kind of talk, and those were Southern Democrats. Those were Democrats.
And I'm not, but I'm admitting to everybody that racism, at least the vestiges that still remains in this country, and look, if you're younger than 50 years old, okay, you weren't in this country when racism was running rampant.
Right.
I'm just saying. I remember when I was a kid, I was a young man, 13 years old, so that would have put me 66 maybe. And I took a Greyhound bus from Hammond, Indiana, all the way down to Biloxi, Mississippi, to go visit my brother, who was at Keesler Air Force Base at the time. Spent 2 weeks down there. And got to tell you, racism was rampant during that time. My whole thing was trying to understand, being Southern, what they meant when they used some of their idioms. When they look at you, and a black porter came up to me at the Greyhound station. Yes, there were porters at one time at Greyhound.
Right.
It wasn't traveling.
No, it was
like it is now.
And people didn't dress in their pajamas.
Yeah,
they actually dressed for,
for traveling. And this porter came up to me, and it shows you I'm a young kid, man. I'm 13 years old. I know a lot of you that may have, for some reason, fell on this station, and you're young and you think that you know it all. Well, I can admit that I didn't know it all. And the porter says, "Can I carry you?"
Carry you?
Yeah, can I carry you?
Oh, your stuff.
Yeah, that's
not you.
I had never heard that term before, and I looked at the guy and said, "No, I'm all right. I can walk." Yeah. That's what I said.
That would have been my response.
Yeah, that's
too,
what
Dave.
I said to him, and he looked at me and he just started laughing, and I said, "What's so funny?" He said, "You are."
That's funny. You are.
That was good, but when somebody asked me if they wanted to carry me from up north, they were going to pick me up and carry me somewhere. And so I learned that term pretty doggone quick. And then y'all and all of that, I grew up with that. My dad was from West Virginia. My mother was from Louisville, Kentucky. Both my brothers were from Kentucky. I was the black sheep of the family. Everybody would say that. I was the only child of the Ellswick household that was born north of the Mason-Dixon line. Yes. I was born in Indiana, up in northwest Indiana, outside of Chicago. And, that's neither here nor there. I've come down here. Do you remember Jim Beard when he was GM over at the other radio station?
I think so.
Okay, well, he came to me one time, and I was sitting in my office, and he walked in. He says, "You got a minute?" And I go, "Yeah." And he says to me, "How come people around here love you?" And I said, "They love me because I think like they do. I'm just a steel worker's boy. All right. I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. You know, I heard a state senator say here in Arkansas, this was about 15 years ago, that if a young person grew up on a dirt road, they were bound for failure. And I laugh at that because the first paved street that was by my house didn't happen until I was 9 years old.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it was in, like, where my grandma lived in Ravenden here in Arkansas. That road wasn't paved. I remember rolling down it, coughing to the dust. You can roll your window down.
That was just, whether you have a paved road in front of your home don't mean squat to the way you should grow up, other than you should not want to grow up and still have unpaved roads around you. You should be able to make enough money that you can go somewhere where they pave the streets.
Yeah, I think moving to the city, I mean, I got a taste of what the country was like, but I think moving to the city also made me well-rounded and able to protect myself. Because I was on my own when I was 15, so I walked to work in the middle of downtown St. Louis. And so I walked like a man, walk like a man. Because you're like Becky of WWE. You're the man. I mean, I had to, because if you walk like a girl,
Becky Lynch,
you're a target.
Yeah.
One time I was going to, the first time I went to Perdido in the recent years, because I used to live in Gulf Breeze in 2001. But the first time I went back, like in 2020, before I moved down there, me and my best friend went down there, and she pulled off, in Jackson, where you get off there's that circle, all that mess, the interstate when you. I
don't know. They've got a bowl of spaghetti somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. And when we got off and this gas station, it was like 1:00 in the morning. This girl, this little young, like 18, 19-year-old girl was walking down the street with a baseball bat and 2 sodas. And she had just walked I was like, go, get back on the highway. Yeah. Get back.
I can understand.
And when the girl's walking with a baseball bat, there's a reason.
But, there's those places in every town in America.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, that helped me be well-rounded and know how to protect myself, But the gravel road, I mean, gosh, that takes me back. My grandma raised pigs. That's where I come from.
Let me make sure you understand. I'm not talking a gravel road. It was a dirt road. It was not paved. It didn't have gravel.
Just dirt.
It was just dirt. And when it rained, it got to be mud.
Well, this was that red clay. So there was some gravel,
we didn't have that,
That was down here. Yeah. And my grandma raised pigs, and my great grandmother raised the pigs, and my grandmother raised rabbits. And that ruined me being a city girl too, because I was like, I was like 8 maybe. I was like, I'm not going to eat the bunny. She tried to tell me it was chicken. I got a leg with fur on it, and I was like, I will never eat it. I've never eaten rabbit, and I can't eat that. I can't eat. No.
Yeah, I've eaten rabbit. No. I've eaten squirrel.
I've had squirrel. I don't like it, but
I like it. Yeah. It's good stuff, and it's a little stringy, but I eat it.
Can't do it.
I've been a judge up at the squirrel cook-off before up in Northwestern.
Oh yeah,
Arkansas.
that's cool.
That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It was amazing what they made out of squirrel.
Yeah, I mean, I've had squirrel gumbo. That's about all I've had, but I had like two little. I was like,
yeah. Well,
I could see is the little squirrel climbing the tree when I was eating it, though.
No.
I'm retarded.
You know what a squirrel is? It's a rat with a fancy tail.
And I think of that too. I don't eat no rat.
I did that when I was in South Korea.
Well, I mean, you eat what you got to eat when you. Yeah. That's probably the best thing you could have had, right?
I'm sure. Well, I'm sure I have eaten dog.
Oh yeah.
Because it's served up over in the Orient.
Yeah, people mocked Trump for that, but people eat dogs.
Well, I thought one of the biggest stories that came out of the Chinese space program was when they were going up to the moon, going to go circle the moon, and they had that food like we had back in NASA back in the 60s in the tube.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And they had a tube of food that was made out of this breed of dog that they raised in China is a culinary delight there.
That's terrible.
And
I'm never going to look at my dogs the same.
People in the United States were going crazy about it. They were upset. Well, people in India go just as crazy when we talk about eating cows. That's a sacred animal there. So, yeah, I find it funny culturally. I talked a little bit and kind of touched on that a little bit yesterday when Enrico was on.
Right.
You know, people who've been in the military, when you're going to PCS overseas and you're going to be in another country and you're going to be surrounded by another culture, you get to go to classes. And they teach you what to do and what not to do. Because like I said, the first time I went to Kuwait, they said you don't cross your legs and show the bottom of your foot to the people who are sitting around you. It's like giving them the bird.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure you're going to make friends and not enemies.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, 7:23, get a break in. Hey, we got a great show for you today. Mark Johnson is going to be here with us starting at 8:05. He'll be here in the studio. And we're going to talk to him about what went on during the fiscal session. What are the important things to know? When's the special session going to come up? We'll talk to him about that as well. But he's bringing one of my favorite people along with him. And go ahead, tell him, Val.
Bud Cummins.
Bud Cummins is coming in. And the gentleman that was killed at his home by the police and by the feds, wow, how long has that been now? It's been
23, 24? When was it?
I think 24.
I think I was not here then, so
so it's been almost 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
And there's still been no charges filed in that. And I'm going to have Bud on, and we're going to talk about what happened and why that shooting just brings up all kinds of
questions,
big red X's
in
your eyes, and they're flashing. And we'll talk about that coming up in the next hour as well. Let's take a break. And by the way, Mark Johnson will be with us for 2 hours. So I'm looking forward to that. We're going to, during the time that he's on, we're going to squeak in Mr. Taxes himself to talk to us. And we'll talk to him. And then we got Razorback Zach.
And Clint Lancaster at 9:30.
Oh, Clint's coming in at 9:30.
I asked him to come on yesterday.
Okay, so he'll give us the latest on, the Secretary of State election.
Well, there was a ruling yesterday in Arkansas Supreme Court for the other case that they had.
Okay.
In Independence County, I believe it was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they did.
In their favor, ruled in their favor, so he's going to talk about that.
And we'll talk about that. Yeah, that's, I'm trying to think.
Where they went.
Brian was involved in that case up in Independence County, in fact. So we'll talk about all of this when it's a chock full ball of fun.
It's a news dump Friday
on the Dave Ellswick Show. Let's take a break. We'll be back. All right, we're at 28 minutes after 7 on a Friday. Half hour almost in the books on the first day of May. And like I was talking to you about, I got a big download yesterday from a site that I go to from time to time. And if I'm going to plant some plants, I want to know what they suggest as far as how much sun they get, how much shade they should get, how much water you should give them, and all of that. And it's got all that information. Well, they sent me a big story about, since we're in, like, I think zone 8 or 9, which is a warm zone. They said you should be planting your maters now.
Maters?
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
So I'm going to look into doing that myself, because I'm just telling you, dude, there's nothing like getting a nice. I keep my tomatoes in the refrigerator, and I know there's people who say, Dave, that hurts the tomato. It takes away some of its taste. But there's just something about taking a tomato
off the vine. It tastes so good.
And having a shaker of salt and salt it and eating it raw. I love that stuff, man. That's good stuff. I like tomatoes with gravy.
I don't like salt, but I love just eating one right hot
on it.
Hot off the vine.
I don't use salt as much as I used to, but there are a couple of things that I do salt consistently. One is tomatoes. Second is watermelon, and then cantaloupe.
I love cantaloupe.
All three of those.
You got to salt them?
I definitely salt them. Yeah.
Ew.
Brings out the juiciness.
A lot of people do though, but I can't. I like mine salt. I like mine salt free.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be back with more. Okay, so let me tell you that coming up after the news at the top of the hour, we'll be joined by State Senator Mark Johnson. Val just let me know that the governor called a special session, which will start on Monday. So we'll see what he has to say about what it is that the legislature is wanting to look at. They got to do something about the prison. And I think from what I've been reading from the governor and from the citizenry, I think that the building of that prison up in Northwest Arkansas is now dead. I don't think that's going to happen, at all. Now
it appears so.
They're talking about other ideas that people had about prisons, and there's been talk here for maybe half the year, about 6 months, about instead of building one big mass prison, that you're looking at like 3 smaller prisons to be used. I'm going to be honest.
That's what I said. Yeah. That was my. I literally said we could do this much smaller prisons and work on the recidivism.
Yeah. Well, the bottom line is we got to have prisons because we got to have the room to put the criminals that are out there, that we changed the law, a lot of our sentencing laws and things of that nature a couple of years back. Mm-hmm. To take care of it. I've had Gilmore on several times talking about that, and he's been sitting there. He supported the big prison up Northwest, and the reason he did is because we need a prison. I mean, I'm just being honest with everybody.
But to think
that's
that
what Mark says.
But to think that she knows better than Americans, but Arkansans, and then her little advisor that come from somewhere other state, that think that they know better than Arkansans and what we need and what we want, like that's crazy to me. Well, like you can't just do it and we gotta just suck it up. You have to allow us to be part in that.
Well, the problem with it is that the area they want to build in doesn't have the water to support it. It's going to cost extra money to deliver the materials to build it up there. They say that they got the workforce up there for a big prison. I've heard just the opposite. We've had people on that have said that that's just the opposite.
I mean, Coach Shelby, who's running against her, and as a libertarian, he has been vocal on this the whole time. And to me, it's ironic that she created her own opponent because he wouldn't have even thought of politics.
Yeah, it's the whole thing about the prison is. I understand where some governors come from I'm governor, and this is where I think we should put the prison, line up and come on, let's go get this done. Well, and to be honest, the governor should know this because when her father was governor, he ran into some of these problems as well of thinking his way was the only way, and which it was not. And so, he ran into some buzzsaws. The biggest buzzsaw that he ran into was trying to get undocumented aliens Arkansas scholarships.
Yeah,
and he was firmly told by the legislature that was not going to happen. And my argument during that time was a simple one. If you can't give every kid in Arkansas a college education, then you should not be making it possible for people who were brought here, no fault of their own. The parents brought them, but they're still, the children of illegals, and they shouldn't get squat until whatever it is that you want to make sure people have. All the citizenry of the people who were born here in Arkansas and legally came here to Arkansas have gotten it as well. You don't give it to illegals as far as that's concerned. So anyway, We got a lot of this stuff to kind of ferret through, and we'll do that starting next hour. You'll also, like we said, I just heard. Who do we got at 8:30? Who's coming on?
Oh, we got so many people.
Yeah.
So at 9 we got Grover Norquist.
Yeah, okay.
9:30 Clint Lancaster.
There you go. Clint Lancaster's coming on.
And Mark Johnson and Bud Cummins should be here shortly.
Yeah, they should be getting here in just a few moments. They don't have a long way to drive anymore. That was always the problem sometimes with some people in the west part of the city, that they had to come to Midtown to be on the radio. I didn't want to do that. And in a sense, I understand it, but I drive I drive into Little Rock
every day
and back home every day to Cabot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a part of my life now. And now that they're, just about done, getting 67 up to snuff, that's going to be a no-brainer. It's going to be so quick to get to back and forth. And it's going to be quick to get to Cersei as well, because they're building north of Cabot as well. If you haven't been up in that area, you'd be really taken by all the construction that's going on with the highways up there. All right, so what's the big stories right now? Well, the biggest story is Iran. I mean, it still is. It's going to be until, Iran capitulates, and they don't look like they're going to do that anytime soon. So the blockade continues, and, we're costing them about $500 million a day, because we've got all their ships bottled up in their ports, and they can't get into the Gulf of Hormuz to move their oil, and 80% of their country's money comes from oil, and we're keeping them from selling to the Chinese as well. Chinese, man, they've been buying up Iranian oil for a long time. They were also buying Venezuelan oil for a long time. Both of those markets now have dried up, and it's really putting the screws to the Chinese government. As well as I said yesterday, I mentioned this, that Russia has on their coast has some pretty doggone big oil reserves. They better be watching China. I'm just saying. There's been some over the years some battles left and right, and Putin shows me that he's willing to do anything that he thinks he must do to protect his country. He's ready. He's a big time Russian nationalist. So don't be surprised if one morning you get up and news is talking about Chinese military rolling into Russia, and we're going to see another Sino fight over there. I mentioned this yesterday. I talked with Enrico about it, and that is that China doesn't have any oil to speak of, and they're missing out on a lot of rare earth minerals, and that's why they're trying their damnedest right now to buy up as much land as they can in other countries that have those minerals, so they can dig them out of the ground and ship them back to China. And that helps them some, but it doesn't take them all the way. If you don't have the natural resources in your home for your, let's say you got a refrigerator and you look into it and you write down the things that you need, well, typically you don't just walk outside and pick it off a tree or whatever. You go to the store to get it. You use other companies to supply those things to you, except in China's case, they're going to try to take them sooner or later. They will try to take it sooner or later. They are a communist regime. Be aware of that. Never forget that. And if you're a young person and you spend a lot of time on the internet, know that they're trying to change your thought process by what they're feeding to you over the internet. That is well known now. The misinformation coming out of the Chinese place is insidious. It really, really is. All right, let me look see what time it is. It's 7:45, so we got about 2 minutes here. Let's see what we can. Let me see what I can get into and stir up here in just a couple of minutes. And all right, let's do this right there. All right, so the Biden administration now used their power to target traditional Christians. If if that's news to you, then you haven't been paying attention. I'm just telling you that.
No.
You just haven't been paying attention. The report has been one that the Trump administration's task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias came out with, and the 200-page document chronicles and summarizes many of the abuses readers who were paying attention during the Biden presidency will already be acquainted with. Tony Perkins of the Family Research Council said this: the new anti-Christian bias task force report is a wake-up call. The task force has produced one of the most, if not the most, substantial work of this administration. The report lays bare what is at the heart of the left's disdain for religious freedom, and it is a clash of worldviews, primarily over abortion, gender ideology, and sexual orientation. That's according to Perkins. The Washington Times turned to Kelly Shackelford of First Liberty, who said this, quote, the Biden administration's record of hostility towards Christian Americans is despicable and should serve as a warning. Then Kelly Shackelford of First Liberty, the CEO of that watchdog group and chief counsel, said in a statement, quote, we can never let this happen again. And that's from the Washington Times. If you go to the Justice Department, you can get a copy of the report and read it for yourself. And I highly recommend, if you're a person of faith, that you do that. People have gone to jail because of just being Christians. About praying in front of abortion centers and things of that nature, and putting people in jail for it. All right, we got to get a break in. Final break of this hour, May 1st. A new month is starting. It's the 5th month of the year. We're almost halfway through 2026. We'll continue in a moment. About 8 minutes remaining here in this first hour of the Dave Ellswick Show. Don't forget, coming up at 8:05, State Senator Mark Johnson is going to be with us. He's bringing along with him a special guest, Bud Cummins. And we're going to pick up that story about the airport executive that was brutally murdered in his own home. We're going to talk about that. Where is that at right now? And we'll get Mark to talk about the special session that will start on Monday. Well, Axios had a great article in the newspaper yesterday, and Trump got his latest briefing from the military commanders on the military options that are left for the next phase in Iran. The thinking is that, and I'm reading now from the Axios article, the thinking is that limited military action coupled with the economic fury strangling the regime may be enough to push and force the regime to capitulate. Barak Ravid at Axios wrote, President Trump is slated to receive a briefing on these new plans for the potential military action in Iran. You got it yesterday. And that briefing came from CITCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper, that according to two sources with knowledge of that meeting. And they were talking to Axios. The briefing signals that Trump is seriously considering resuming major combat operations, either to try to break the logjam in negotiations or to deliver a final blow before ending the war. CENTCOM has prepared a plan for a short and powerful wave of strikes on Iran. Remember, I talked about this about a week and a half ago. The B-52s, like at Barksdale and stuff like that, they're not there anymore. They've moved those folks somewhere else. Now, are they on Diego Garcia, which would be my thought, because they could launch B-52s from there and go right into Iran and rain down terror from the skies. But likely, including infrastructure targets, you're going to see the president take out some power stations. You'll see the president taking out some of those big bridges that Iran has, built so that they get into other countries. And they're thinking about doing all of this in hopes of breaking the negotiation deadlock, according to three subjects and sources with knowledge about what they're discussing behind closed doors. The hope would be that Iran would then return to the negotiating table, showing more flexibility on the nuclear issue. Another plan expected to be shared with Trump is focused on taking over part of the Strait of Hormuz to reopen it to commercial shipping. Such an operation could include ground force, as one source said. Another option that has been discussed in the past and might come up in the briefing or in this briefing was a special forces operation to secure Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium. So they're looking at several things now. And sooner or later, push is going to come to shove. It's got to. You can't. Look, they've spent what now? Almost 3 weeks negotiating with Iran, and they keep saying, "Yeah, we'll go along with that." And then somebody comes out and says, "No, we're not going to do that," and we're not going to get rid of our centrifuges and all of the stuff that we got, and we want to reclaim the uranium that was buried, and we want that, and that's 80% ready to go into an atomic weapon. And the president has told Iran over and over and over ad nauseum that they cannot have a nuclear weapon. They may not have that. They may want one, but they're not going to get one. And the way I'm seeing this, I mean, I'm way off base, but from the years that I've looked and watched what the Iranians are doing, they're bound and determined to do what they want to do. They'll say they'll have a ceasefire. They say that we won't try to get a nuclear weapon or whatever. You're going to have to watch them like a hawk. I mean, it's just the same way when Reagan was president and we had so much problem with the Soviet Union. You know, it was trust but verify. Trust that they're going to do it, but make sure you verify that they are doing it. The IEA just yesterday said that their inspections will have to be agreed to, unannounced, and being able to drive into Iran and go to sites that they're worried about, and being able to tell the president what's happening. Now, the military knows, the area that was destroyed of their nuclear program where they buried a lot of that uranium. They know exactly where it's at. That's what satellites are for. That's what spy satellites are for. And spy satellites are a whole light years ahead of what they used to be. I mean, you can read the license plates on some of those vehicles from outer space. They are very, very good. And, we've got a brand new weapon that we're saying that if we have to use it, we'll have to use it. The name of the weapon, Black Eagle. That's what it's called. It's I think a supersonic missile is what it is, probably, which means the Iranian government and other governments that are helping Iran would not be able to shoot it down. Once it's launched, it's going to its target, and nothing can stop it on the way. All right, let's take a break, and we'll be getting Mark Johnson situated in here, and Bud Cummins here as well. And we got a lot of news to cover in the next 2 hours on the Dave Ellswick Show. Well, I haven't heard the doorbell ring, but doesn't mean that they're not out there wanting to get in. I'll let you check that out, Val. But State Senator Mark Johnson and Bud Cummins will be joining us any moment here in the studio. Okay, so I just heard Mark Johnson talking that he's here and that Bud is on his way. So he'll be with us in a few moments. Were you ringing the doorbell?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we didn't hear you.
I think we need a battery.
Yeah, I think we need something better than that. We need something that when, it's a buzz or whatever, they're in the studio where you're at, so you know there's somebody at the door.
Well, I know the other day when I was off and Michael Paco was here,
Yeah,
he was like, nobody's answering. And I was like, I am so sorry. I'll get someone.
Yeah, he was trying to get in. He talked about that. He had been here at the studio. He'd gotten here at about 7:55.
I felt bad.
And, Tommy went, was Tommy in here? Nope, I think that was Steve. Steve went to the door, and there he was, and brought him in. I thought he had forgotten about the interview.
No, I was calling everybody. Are you there yet? Are you there? And then I didn't realize. I thought Steve was covering for me. I didn't realize Tommy was.
Yeah. Tommy had the first 2 hours, and then Steve took the last 2 hours.
There we go.
They broke it up.
I got to have two people to replace me.
Hello there, State Senator Mark Johnson. How are you?
I'm great.
Uh-oh.
This is halftime. We've sine-died the fiscal session, and we go in special session Monday. And
Right.
I hope it goes very quickly. I anticipate it will. These specials are interesting because we still have to go through the committee procedure.
Right.
And there's it takes less time than in normal sessions, but certainly it's not instant, even though we easily have the votes to pass this bill that'll cut everybody's income tax by a little bit and some by more. But you know how you eat an elephant. You've heard that.
Well, one bite at a time.
And with this time, it will this cut, and I hope we can do another one next year that will at least cut the top rate in half of what it was just a few years ago. When Bumpers was governor, it was raised to 7%, and and there's
Bud. Come on in, Bud.
So we'll be ready for that, and I'm confident that we'll be out no later than Wednesday.
Oh, well, that's good. Did the governor say anything about she might want to talk to you guys about doing something about the prison?
Not a word. Now, we all know that's on the table. We have to deal with that. I think in the interest of keeping us from getting bogged down in fiscal session, she recognized that, at least in the short run, the original plan was off the table. It seems
like to me that the big prison that she wanted to build is dead.
I don't know that it's dead, but I think there's enough, to get 75 votes in the House.
That's a lot.
It is a lot for even good things. I learned something, and I've been around so long, Dave, I'm shocked when I learned something I didn't know. The one thing I didn't know was that I was told that employees or spouses of employees of the University of Arkansas, and it's not a rule, it's just kind of an unwritten rule or tradition, they don't vote on the UA appropriation bill.
Oh.
And you have several people, and remember that includes the Division of Agriculture. So if your wife works for the county agent, you're an employee. She's an employee of the University of Arkansas. Well, they don't vote on the budget. They vote present, whatever. Well, when you have to get 75 votes, we have one vacancy, of course, because of the death of Representative Stanberry. So there's only 99 members there. That's not a lot of margin. If you got a few people against it, they stop it. And in many cases, that's a good thing. But logistically, it's tough when we're trying to get. It's interesting the way the House operates. They let and I say these people have every right to vote and speak like they want to, but they get into fiscal session and they're upset with something that a particular agency does, so they vote down their budget.
Right.
Knowing full well that the heat will get turned up and they will end up eventually but voting. Sometimes they vote for it. We've had it happen where we didn't. 2 years ago,
right.
We didn't pass the Game and Fish Commission
That's
budget.
right.
And the governor had to call us back in special session, or we would have not had an operating Game and Fish Commission, which meant we wouldn't have any hunting season. So that was fixed in a short special session. But still, it's probably a good system in that regard. But now Bud's here, and we can talk about.
Let's talk about is it Malinowski? Is that how he pronounced his name? Who was, as far as I'm concerned, gunned down in his own home.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
As far as what went down, and Bud, my screen, I can't look across and look at you, but the bottom line,
I'm here.
Yeah, I know you're there. Shook your hand before you sat down. Here's the key: is that I haven't heard a squeak about this case since the last time you were on.
Yeah, it's been pretty astonishing to me that when this happened, pretty quickly, Chairman Jim Jordan of the House Judiciary Committee got wind of it. He convened a 2-day hearing. I testified that they drug the Biden ATF director in there. He basically refused to testify, but he was there getting beat up all day. And there was such a commotion about it and such seemingly overwhelming criticism of what happened that you just thought naturally that there would be a follow-up. Most of the time something like this happens, in my experience, it seems like authorities come back to the public later and give you a read back and say, well, we've looked at this and this is why it happened. And this is what was justified, or this was a mistake. And this is who's been fired. This is who's been disciplined. This is, we've identified some shortcomings in training, something. And it's been crickets. And we know that ATF has told the Department of Justice two things that, are not necessarily objectively proven. But their explanation to their bosses has been Brian Malinowski was a significant gun trafficker and that he knew he was encountering police when he shot at them.
Okay, now,
I think anybody that looks at all the facts we have would say those two allegations are absurd. And that's the argument we've been making to the department is you don't get stonewalled by that. That's ridiculous.
Let's talk to State Senator Johnson. It would have seemed to me that someone in the Senate or someone in the House would have demanded an investigation into this. But it's been crickets there, too.
Well, and that's the reason that I wrote this letter. And for those that haven't followed it in the news lately, with the assistance of Bud, because Bud and I have been friends for, I figured it the other day, about 40 years.
Yeah.
And we talked about it, and I said, well, how about maybe I should write a letter? And he said, well, maybe, could you do that? I said, yeah, I could do that. I said, and maybe get some other senators to sign it. Well, I took the draft around to several of my colleagues. I didn't post it in our email stream. I just went around and talked on the floor because we're in session. And let me brag on my colleagues.
Okay.
I didn't get to everybody. I only had one just decline, and he wasn't opposed to what we were doing. He just declined to do it. Almost all the Republicans signed it. 3 of the 6 Democrats signed it, including the minority leader,
right,
and and Senator Tucker, who represents the district that Mr. Malinowski live, and he is an attorney, and he read it very carefully. He had a problem with one sentence, and I thought, again, doesn't hurt to have another lawyer to put eyeballs on it. I deleted that sentence, and we have a letter. It went to the president, signed by 30 Arkansas state senators. We copied the acting attorney general of the United States. We copied all of our congressional delegation. I had a great response from them. They all appreciated it, expressed that, and even one, and I'll call him out and thank him, Congressman Steve Womack from the 3rd District, mentioned that he was forwarding it to his friend, Dan Driscoll, who is the Secretary of the Army and the acting head of ATF right now. So I feel like we're getting some attention, Dave, and it's at this point, I trust that we've set the wheels in motion again, and maybe we'll start hearing something other than crickets. I am trying to concentrate my efforts for the time being, after sending the letter, on maybe what we need to do at the state level. One of the concerns that, and again, we want questions answered, and I said that in the press conference the other day that I held when I announced it. I'm not here to give answers. I'm here to say that we are asking questions, and some of those questions are local. For example, we had the Little Rock police chief come to a legislative hearing in Little Rock. We were going to ask questions of him, and he basically, I won't be unkind and say he stonewalled us, but he, let's just say he exercised his Fifth Amendment rights.
Okay.
And he said that he was not going to speak on the advice of the Little Rock City Attorney, Tom Carpenter, who basically said, don't say anything. Well, we're a legislative hearing. We're not a civil action that, that would be appropriate advice, counselor, I guess, to you have a right to remain silent. Everybody knows of that, but we're the Arkansas General Assembly. We're elected by the people to find out what the municipal corporations of the state of Arkansas might be doing to suppress the rights of an individual citizen under both the First and Second Amendments. So that's kind of where I am. And from this point forward, I'm grateful for the response out of the Trump administration, and especially Congressman Womack and people that hopefully are moving forward. But, we're going to need to start looking at this at the state level as well.
All right. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
go ahead. I'll tell you if they're incorrect.
Would you be willing to be the person that calls for a special investigation on this?
I would not be per se in a formal sense. I have spoken with members and especially the chairman of our Joint Performance Review Committee, which is in effect, our permanent investigative committee in the Arkansas legislature. Senator Terry Rice is the chair, and I believe he has he's followed it very carefully, and he signed this letter, and he specifically has expressed to me his understanding of the issue and the fact that we need to do something about it. And between now and general session in January, I'm not saying he's not putting words in his mouth at all, but I think there is a tendency among the legislature, at least in the Senate, and certainly I know House members, many of them feel the same way, that this has to be addressed in a sense that we can't have rogue police departments going in and violating citizens' rights in conjunction with some vague mandate of a federal agency, which has. The paper this morning had an article, Bud's on the front page, talking about the change in the ATF rules. So let's let him clarify that.
Okay, we'll get to that right after we come back from this break. It's 20 minutes after 8. It's the first day of May. We're getting close to midway through 2026 already. It seems like it's going fast. And I'm going to plant my tomatoes probably next week.
I can't wait for some homegrown tomatoes.
I'm with you.
I'm almost thinking of a pilgrimage to Bradley County to bring some back.
All right. With that said, when we come back, Bud Cummins joins us here on the Dave Ellswick Show.
Bud needs to head out about
The lawyer for the Malinowski family is Bud Cummins. Bud's been on my show many, many times. We've known each other for a lot of years. And he's one of the guys that I can tell you, he's one of the good guys. He really
Absolutely.
is. He's one
Thank
of the
you.
good guys. And so, Bud, let me ask you, where are we now? What you bring us up to date. I'll just turn it over to you.
Well, as far as my representation of the estate, myself and some other attorneys filed a wrongful death action on behalf of the estate. It's in federal court. The case has not progressed very far. Things don't happen very quickly in federal court, and the government has filed lengthy motions to dismiss the case, raising a myriad of defenses and immunities that are unique to federal law enforcement, mostly for good reasons. You know, I'm still a pro law enforcement guy.
Yeah, I know you are.
We don't want to make it too easy for everybody that gets arrested to sue the agents, and so there's a lot of protection there. They've raised every bit of that. The law is pretty complicated and doesn't really, frankly, make a lot of sense when you apply it to certain facts. And this case is probably one of them. The judge really has, we've got a good judge, and I'm sure he wants to get it right. It's an important case. He made that clear.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, we're patiently waiting for him to make some rulings on those dispositive motions, just so we can go forward and start getting some facts, doing depositions and what have you. But what Senator Johnson did, and Mrs. Malinowski and I, you know, we really appreciate this effort just to kind of keep this on everyone's radar screen, because ATF would love for this to just be swept under the rug and forgotten, obviously.
Yeah, just like they wanted, what happened up in the mountains to be
Ruby
swept
Ridge.
away. Yeah, Ruby Ridge.
And
Exactly right.
and you know, but look, an Arkansan, a well-respected Arkansan, you know, who was in a well-respected job and doing a good job for a long time, and had a hobby of going to gun shows, had no information, no understanding that anybody suspected that he was in violation of this low-level regulation, which is reported on in the paper today. And the federal government thought it was a good idea to kick his door in at 6 a.m. and kill him in his own home.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, you know, as one senator said to me a long time ago, if what they did to Brian Malinowski is legal, somebody needs to change the law. The lawsuit can only focus on what we're allowed to focus on in the lawsuit. And that's kind of some very narrow issues about the constitutionality of how they actually entered the home,
Right.
whether they bungled it, which I think strongly believe they did. But there's a lot of larger questions that that people come out. I've been involved in a lot of public controversy over 40 years. I've never been involved in something where it's 2 years later, and I can't go to Kroger and not have somebody walk up to me and say, what's going on? Whatever happened with people are really concerned and have gotten no answers. And, you know, everyone I'm personal friends with every member of our congressional delegation. I don't really completely understand how they've let this go 2 years when a constituent was killed in his own home inexplicably, unexplainably, and they have not put more pressure on the Department of Justice to provide the answers that Senator Johnson. But I think that they will get behind his letter and help encourage the Department of Justice to look into it.
Well, Wednesday of next week, I will have Congressman Hill on and Congressman Westerman. They come on every Wednesday of the Dave Ellswick Show for most part. And I'll ask them both, what's their thought about it?
Well, I do know that Congressman Hill some time ago did write the Department of Justice a similar letter. And to my knowledge, they just ignored it.
Sounds like the ATF.
So he's made some effort, and we know that, you know, I know that Senator Cotton had made some early inquiries, but it's time to kind of stop the train and say, wait a minute, we're going to get these answers. Nobody can understand why you put these resources on a case of this low magnitude. And the article in the paper this morning is as to that This was the enforcement of a regulation that gun control people refer to as the gun show loophole.
Okay.
It's the right of citizens to buy and sell guns without obtaining a federal firearms license, doing background checks, doing paperwork up to some limit. The problem is, the natural problem with that is nobody really understands where the limit is. If you read the regulation, the pamphlet, is a half-inch thick. And I'm just telling you, you could put an auditorium of 100 lawyers, have them read the pamphlet and ask them each to write an essay on what the rule is, and you get 100 different answers. There's not an objective test in the entire regulation.
Well, and Bud, as you know very well, and Dave, you know too, a lot of things that judges rule on related to laws and regulations, they will call them vague, and they'll sometimes call them unconstitutionally vague, that we have a right to know. And I'll let Bud tell what he had in the paper this morning, but they need to say a number, that if you've got, if selling 12 guns is okay and selling 13 guns is not okay.
Makes you a felon.
It's like the speed limit. It's not, well, don't drive too fast, but okay, it's 65 or it's 75. You want to give me a number.
One of the key definitions it posed the question, is your primary motivation in selling guns livelihood and profit? Well, this was a guy that made over $250,000 a year in his day job. He liked to go on a Saturday every now and then to a gun show, and over several years he couldn't have made more than a few $1,000s selling guns. So if he understood that to be the test, I can't ask him, he's not here, but
right.
if somebody said, well, as long as your primary motivation isn't livelihood and profit, you're okay, wouldn't that be a reasonable interpretation of that rule? So that's how vague it is.
All right, we got to take a break. Yep. We got news coming up, then we're going to come back. We'll talk more with Bud Cummins and with the State Senator Mark Johnson here on the Dave Ellswick Show. All right, back with you here on the Dave Ellswick Show. Bud Cummins has joined us here in studio. We're talking about the Malinowski. I call it a murder. I really do, because I don't. It sure looks like a murder to me. And of course, also here is State Senator Mark Johnson. He wrote a letter that was what went up to the ATF. Is that where
To
it
the
went?
president.
To the president. Okay, directly to President Trump, and wanted to, can you help us get some answers? Bud, you were talking during the break, and I want to bring this up because it's an important caveat to this case, and that is a lot of times when I hear people talk about this particular case, they talk about the SWAT team going
That's right.
in. This was not a SWAT team, was it?
No, this was SWAT teams are assigned to be on the SWAT team. They get special in-depth training. They routinely practice together. They go to competitions together, because what they do is, in this type of operation, is so incredibly risky to everyone involved, them, the targets, the occupants of the home, whatever. And so if they have, they deal with hostage situations, what they do is incredibly risky, and they practice all the time. That didn't happen here. This was a bunch of random agents, a couple of state and local task force officers dressed up like SWAT team, who maybe had some training somewhere, but this was not a team that trained together. And in fact, I think the personnel actually changed from one week to the next when they started to come out the week before, and then they had an operations plan and a meeting, and then they just discovered that Brian Malinowski had left town on business, and they shut the whole thing down. Even though it was a search warrant, they could have still searched his home. They waited till he got home the next week and came back. And some of the personnel that had been in the planning process actually changed. But no, this was not a SWAT team. This was just some agents pretending to be SWAT team in a situation that I've been told many times by people who are SWAT, special weapons and tactics professionals and trainers, that this was not, that no legitimate SWAT team would have ever come to this operation, because it didn't merit raising the level of risk, because it was so obvious that there was no danger. This was a person with no criminal history, no propensity for violence, no risk of flight, no risk of destruction of evidence. There was just no reason to use those tactics here.
Yeah, and I got to agree with that, because everybody knows where he worked at. He worked at the airport. They could have gone and seen him at the airport and talked to him
That's exactly right,
about
Dave.
this, and they never. It didn't seem like it crossed their mind. And I've said all along, Bud, and you weren't on the day that I was talking about it, somebody was trying to hang their hat on this story to show how tough and how good they were, and was looking to move up in the ranks. At least that's how I see it. I was in the military long enough to know that, the Delta Force people, they do that a lot of times.
Well, I think that's a real possibility, and we may find that out when we finally ultimately get it permission to do discovery in the lawsuit.
So you think that that's going to come?
I can't tell you what I can't prove, but I think it's a legitimate suspicion. We know that just a few weeks after this, President Biden was to announce, and did announce, a change in this regulation, and he characterized it as he had closed the gun show loophole. Mm-hmm. The guns, and let's not take political positions here today. Let's just acknowledge that has been a robust debate between Second Amendment rights people and gun control people,
of course,
for the last 3 or 4 decades. And under Democrat, and certain crimes are more resources are put on certain crimes and certain activities during a Republican administration versus a Democrat. This was a Democrat administration. This was a big deal to them. Under most Republican administrations, frankly, they're going to put those federal resources on other places.
Like the border.
The border.
Which is exactly what happened.
and so this wouldn't have happened under any, I'm not picking out any specific president, almost certainly wouldn't have happened under conservative leadership just because of the politics behind. But it's such a low level and vague regulation, and it's politically charged. But yes, it's very possible that somebody in the hierarchy at ATF knew that President Biden was going to be making a public announcement and thought, hey, we can get a really high profile case here, and I'll get promoted out of Little Rock and get to Sheboygan or wherever he wanted to be. And, that's a possibility, but I can't tell you that that's what happened.
Val, you had a question.
Yeah. I mean, hi, bud. I just wanted to understand why they taped the doorbell cover over with the camera. Like, from a legal standpoint, that raises like huge questions.
Well, all I can tell you is that when the state police interviewed the fellow that I think that actually taped over the doorbell, he said, we taped over the lens of the camera just in case something happened.
Something did happen.
I don't know what he meant by that, but it sounds really bad.
Well, and it's contradictory to the whole policy of them wearing body cams is so we will know what happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that protects both sides in this.
And let's talk about that. Any body cams on those guys?
No.
No. And again, there was a policy now
in place.
Mandatory.
Help me. Wasn't this during a period they created and this was during the Biden administration, they created a policy where they would wear body cams, but they claimed they hadn't purchased them yet.
Yeah, don't hold me to the dates, but approximately 2 years before this, you may remember the Breonna Taylor case.
Yeah.
In Louisville,
Kind of a similar forced entry in a search. It was a drug case. The Breonna Taylor was accused of allowing a drug dealer to use her apartment as a stash house for guns and drugs, or drugs and cash. And I guess she was killed. Yeah. And her family was paid $15 million. The Department of Justice prosecuted some of the policemen. There were marches in her name. This was kind of during that Black Lives Matter era. And as a result of that, President Biden signed an executive order, and he basically banned no-knock searches except in very specific cases. And he said all federal law enforcement shall wear body-worn cameras when executing search warrants. The Department of Justice followed up with a memo to all the federal law enforcement agencies that said you shall develop a policy immediately, and you shall wear. It doesn't say when you can afford it. It doesn't say when you get around to it. And so here we are 2 years later, and you got these guys out executing a federal search warrant, not wearing body cameras. And their explanation was, well, we just haven't been funded for those yet. But if you go back and look at what the President of the United States executive order and I think the Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco's directive to all the law enforcement agencies, it says immediately, you shall wear body-worn cameras when executing search warrants. So, that may be a legitimate excuse if you're a bureaucrat, but doesn't really hold water with me.
Yeah.
And Little Rock has worn body cameras for a long time. I don't know the specifics, but I'm under the impression that most Little Rock officers have had body cameras for a long time. So apparently someone told the Little Rock police officers that were present to take their cameras off. And we don't know who did that or, whose authority that happened, but they didn't wear theirs either.
Which is why I would like to see Chief Helton come back to the legislature and talk to us. Maybe his city attorney will have a road to Damascus conversion on finding the truth.
Carpenter, I doubt it.
Well, Tom and I are old friends. We went to college together. He's a good guy, but sometimes I think he might be incorrect.
Yeah, I agree with
Well,
that.
he didn't take the fifth unless he can articulate that he feared that he might be prosecuted for a crime in relation to that. The chief, I don't think, had that concern. I can completely understand if Tom told him, hey, don't talk to the media about this. There might be litigation. I mean, that's just kind of good old common sense. The media is a little different. But when your state legislature calls you and puts you in the witness chair, and I don't know what basis he really had a legitimate basis to refuse to tell the legislature and answer their questions.
Well, when that happened, I was in the room, and I remember turning around in my seat to the colleagues in the row behind me, and I said, did he just take the fifth in a legislative hearing?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, a legitimate answer in a situation like that is, I don't know. I have no problem when someone says, I don't know.
But I'll find out.
But sometimes they might be lying when they say that. But, if you truly don't know, it's okay to say that. And we can forgive that. But people need to remember that in Arkansas, cities are municipal corporations. I mean, we can't revoke a charter of the little old town over here that had a speed trap so bad that it was literally shutting
Damascus.
down. No, well, Damascus was a minor one compared to Allport. That's the one.
Okay.
But, there's a lot of litigation just to try to, revoke the charter of a little town that probably shouldn't exist as a town. But legally, the largest city in the state is still in that same boat. They are a municipal corporation. Cities operate under authority granted by the Constitution and the General Assembly. They're not autonomous legal entities. Counties are a little different. They're mentioned in the Constitution, and Amendment 55 outlines. But the city has to follow state law is what it comes down to. And there's just a lot of questions about. I recently received an attorney general's opinion. I was troubled by this sign that was over at the Little Rock Zoo that said, basically it said, we don't care if you have a concealed carry, the enhanced concealed carry permit or not, you can't carry in here. Well, I asked the attorney general to give me an opinion and said, does that violate Arkansas statute? And he recently sent me a letter and said, yes, it does. So,
well, that's good. Interesting to know.
But there is a propensity, I'm afraid, within certain places, in certain cities, and Little Rock in this case was one. They said, well, we don't care what the law says. We did that. And our friends that attorneys have had the same issue with the courts in Little Rock, because the lawyers are officers of the court, they can carry it. But this is evolving, and I think that the pro Second Amendment people are winning on that. But it's the same thing. We can't let a rogue city not follow the law and then cooperate with some federal agency that is clearly violating the constitutional rights. In this case, that resulted in the death of a citizen.
But does the supremacy clause apply there?
Man, you're asking me a question that I'm not prepared to answer. I haven't thought through that.
Well, he's a lawyer. He has to follow his training.
Yeah.
My non-lawyer interpretation is that the supremacy clause has to do with relationships between different levels of government.
Yes.
But I think we could all agree that the Bill of Rights is the supreme part, because it talks about the rights that are guaranteed and they're natural rights. I mean, this is something that was,
and that the government is supposed to be protecting its citizens.
Exactly.
Well, if your question was directed at, does ATF somehow have some power over the Little Rock Police Department to force them to come out and participate in this fiasco? No, they don't. And if I were the chief of police after what happened, I would quit taking their calls in the future. I wouldn't put my people out in their operations anymore. But that's up to him.
Well, that's why we want to have, again, when I had this press conference to announce this letter and provide it to the media,
right?
My thesis is two things. One, I'm not here to give you answers. I'm here to tell you the questions we want to answer.
Right.
And the second is that this is not a partisan effort. And I said it's not even a bipartisan effort, although we had Democrats and Republicans sign the letter. It's a nonpartisan effort. We all want citizens protected and not at the mercy of a whim of some rogue law enforcement agency. And I think in this case, ATF breaking their own internal rules was a rogue law enforcement agency. And that's why Bud and Mrs. Malinowski, the estate, are suing them.
Well, and listen to what I just said. Do we have time for me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a former United States attorney.
Yep.
It's probably without a doubt the highlight of my resume, the time that was most gratifying to me in 30, 40 years of working. I'm pro law enforcement every day. But listen to what I just said. I just said that the chief of police shouldn't cooperate with ATF. That's lost credibility. The Department of Justice from top to bottom has lost credibility with all the things we've seen over the last 15 years, declining to investigate Hillary Clinton's emails, the Clinton Foundation, making up a Russian collusion and pursuing a 2-year investigation, knowing full well of a president of the United States, knowing full well it was baseless. The entire Department of Justice has lost credibility. When you got a former U.S. attorney that's as conservative and pro-law enforcement as me, sitting here telling you I don't trust them, and somebody needs to rebuild it from the ground up, that's a real problem. And it goes much wider and broader than this particular case. But this case is a tragedy. It was unnecessary. It was created out of whole cloth by ATF. And somebody needs to pay attention and get to the bottom of it and make changes.
All right. I got to get one final break in. And then when we come back, where do we go from here? We'll talk to Bud Cummins about that and the state senator about that in just a moment. All right. Very good. Let's finish up this hour with State Senator Mark Johnson and Bud Cummins, who's the legal representative for the Malinowski family. Where to now, Bud? I mean, is it just sit and wait and see if somebody says something up top?
Well, yes, but I've made a commitment to Mrs. Malinowski when shortly after the death of her husband that I would help her get to the bottom of this. I had no idea I was making a 2-year commitment.
Right.
But, I gave her my word. So I'm not going to stop. I mean, I'm going to continue to follow up and pester the Department of Justice until they convince me that they have taken an independent look at this and not been stonewalled by misrepresentations ATF, and that they've, I think almost certainly what should flow out of that is some discipline, some changed rules, some retraining, some new policies at a very minimum. But until we see that, I'm going to keep after them, because people ask me, they want to know if this can happen again. I do too.
Yeah, well, if it can happen to that man, it can happen to me.
That's the bottom line, Dave. And whether it's a man on the street, friend of mine that calls me, or a fellow legislator, they say the same thing.
That's right.
And that's a frightening thing. We shouldn't fear our government. We love our country, but people sometimes they fear our government, and that's un-American. We should be able to trust our people in authority to follow the Constitution and then appreciate the rights that we have in the Bill of Rights.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if this can happen to a guy because he went to gun shows on the weekends and sold coins and toys and guns at a card table, had no idea he was under suspicion for anything. What if you're using the wrong fertilizer in your yard and you're unknowingly maybe
using what Timothy McVeigh
EPA? Well, maybe the EPA doesn't like the fertilizer you're putting on your grass, or what if you accidentally change the course of the creek behind your house and don't know that violated some government regulation?
Waters of the U.S.
Can they come? Can they come kick your door in over that? And So we want to know. I mean, I want to know because I just, if this is like the guy said, if what they did to Brian Malinowski is legal, somebody needs to change the law, because I thought there was a Fourth Amendment.
Well, here's the old saying is, when the government fears the people, there's freedom. When the people fear the government, there's going to be
tyranny.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works.
So, but would a reasonable person that would have been inside that home perceiving that moment what was happening? That's what we need to.
We have Mrs. Malinowski's account. All she heard was they heard a loud crash as they started breaking in the two sets of front doors, and her husband had a few seconds to get up and get a pistol and by the time he rounded the corner and could see the front entryway, he saw the silhouette of a man, obviously armed, stepping into his house. And that's all the information he had, and it all happened in seconds.
And to take that a step further, again, we're speculating here,
right.
But if I'm not saying he was, but if it's admittedly people that went to gun shows had met and knew Brian Malinowski and probably suspected he had a lot of guns at his house.
Right.
And if you're a criminal that might want to steal some guns, that might be a place you would go. And so I'm sure that Brian, could reasonably have suspected when he heard the crash that it was a burglar coming in to hold him at gunpoint and steal all his guns.
Home invasion.
Yeah. Well, and so it's not like a black and white. There's some gray here that he acted appropriately, coming to the front door with a firearm, protecting his property and his wife.
I mean, that's the first thing I do when I hear something crazy. I grab my firearm.
Well, and they never heard anyone announce police or anything else.
And that's the thing I wanted to ask you.
But even if they had, go Google home invasion, fake police. It happens all the time. Sure. People kick doors in and say police.
But didn't they say in the beginning that they announced it on their speaker outside?
We have a very bad audio from the patrol car on the street that.
But he's in his bedroom.
You can hear them knocking on the exterior insulated glass storm door. And shouting something that presumably was something to the effect of open up ATF, police, or something like that.
For 10 seconds, right?
You can't really hear it because they're knocking and yelling at the same time. They did it probably for about 20 seconds. By 28 seconds, they were already breaking the doors open, and you cannot hear any more announcements after that.
So the person's supposed to be awake and out of their bed and answering the door.
An hour before sunrise.
Yeah.
No, they'd had to wait for me to make a stop at the back.
Well, the law requires the law requires that they wait a reasonable time
20
for
seconds
a person to voluntarily come and admit them, and nobody knows what a reasonable time is because it's different. For a motel room, that might be a shorter time than a 3,000 square foot house in West Little Rock.
Exactly.
But everybody knows, I think, that nobody's going to get to their front door and identify who's
in
there
20 seconds.
An hour before sunup. In 20 seconds, 28 seconds.
My dad said reasonable probably causes more lawsuits than anything.
No, I can imagine.
It's not what's reasonable in this situation is not necessarily reasonable in that situation. And the apartment or motel room versus a house is a great example of that. But the fact is that we're here because something happened that could have happened anywhere, but someone died because of
Yes, they did.
And this is a whole different thing than just, oops, we made a little mistake here. This was obviously planned. It was the fact that they went to the Walmart parking lot and were going to do it. And then, as Bud mentioned, they found out that Mr. Malinowski was not in town, so they aborted that one. They were itching for something like this. I'm not saying they wanted to kill him, but they were itching for some kind of a confrontation.
There's some ulterior motive. That was my thinking.
All right, we got to take a break. News is next, and then we're going to talk a little bit more with State Senator and Grover Norquist will join our conversation as well. But Bud, anything that happens, please get the number for Val, and you call us immediately, and we'll get you on the air.
I'll do that, and thank you so much for devoting time to this. Mrs. Malinowski appreciates it, and a lot of people around Arkansas appreciate it because there's still a high level of concern in some quarters of what the hell happened out there.
Yeah, it should be.
I mean, I worry now, is somebody going to break down my door in the middle of the night? Because I sleep through a tornado. I wouldn't hear it. Same thing probably happened to me.
Yeah, I'd be the guy that wakes up with a bright light in my eyes and looking at the barrel of a gun.
Well, my dogs would probably get,
All right, time for us to take a break. Let's do that. News is next. Bud Cummins, thank you so much for joining us here today on the Dave Ellswick Show. All right, we continue on the Dave Ellswick Show. Bud Cummins had things that he has to get to. He has left the studio. I know that we'll be in touch with him over the next few weeks and get as much new information as we can. And one last question for you, State Senator Johnson. If the feds don't seem to be wanting to move, their way towards getting these answers, will the state government look at ways of trying to get those answers?
I think so. I can't guarantee that, Dave. As I mentioned, one of our tools is the Joint Performance Review Committee. I think that would be appropriate, but I won't put words in the mouth of my friend Senator Rice, who's the chair of that. It escapes me at the moment who the House chair is, but I think that'd be an appropriate thing to be done. We have a little more flexibility in the General Assembly during the interims because we're not having to pass tax cuts and budgets like we're doing this month or last month. Today's the 1st, and Monday we will meet and hopefully cut income taxes. But I think during the interim, these are the kinds of things that we need to work on and look at and make plans on. At this point, I think it's an investigative thing. Let's find out the truth. It's hard for us to legislate when we're not completely informed about all the facts. And it's if Brian had not died,
mm-hmm.
this would be a different approach. It would be, well, what about this gun show loophole, they call it, and what is this real loophole? Or yes, you are. Where are you between a collector and a trafficker?
Right.
There'd be a lot of things, but this is about a fact. A man died needlessly, in my opinion,
and could have been served the papers that they wanted to serve him with at multiple given times and not have to get up early in the morning to do it.
I don't even think it was a serve. There was just a search warrant for the house, wasn't it, Mark?
It was a search warrant for his facility, but they could have gone to him at his business and said, we want to serve. He would have said, well, let's go there now, or we'll see you at 5:00 or whatever. And
did they search the house after that?
After
they killed
him?
him?
Because they confiscated several guns. I don't remember the number, but he was not making any secret of the fact that he was a gun collector. And again, I said that, and in response to something you had asked about, Val, but since he went to gun shows, he had his table, he bought and sold guns and coins. He liked them too. But the man made like $265,000 a year salary. He was the highest paid employee of the city of Little Rock.
Yes, he is.
And you can't say this is his business, what he does for a living. No, he was an airport manager for a living. But the fact that he had these guns in inventory, if you want to call it that, was known to people. If you were a crook and you went to gun shows to find people to go rob at 6:00 in the morning before sunup, this would have been maybe someone you would have looked at. So certainly he was smart enough to be cognizant of that. Probably has a weapon beside his bedside, like a lot of people I know, probably at least 2 in this room.
Yep.
You just that's why this is why we're here. This is why we're asking these questions.
All right. So state Senator Mark Johnson was talking about the special session starting on Monday.
Yes, sir.
And it's basically happening to cut taxes. And we've got one of the biggest tax warriors ready to join us here on the Dave Ellswick Show, and Grover Norquist. Grover, thanks for joining us. And how goes it today?
The world is going reasonably well in many senses. We still have the 8 states with no income tax. We have 16 states that have a flat rate tax, which takes envy off the table and makes future tax reductions easier and any tax increase, a very big lift, because you have to look everybody in the state in the eye and say, you're all paying for this, as opposed to their favorite thing, which is, oh, somebody over there will pay for it. You shouldn't worry about it. We now have another 5 states that have passed laws that are phasing their income tax down to 0. 2 Wednesdays ago, South Carolina passed that law. They're going from 6% down to 2 in the next 5 years. Actually, 1.99, not 2, 1.99, and then on to 0. West Virginia will go to 0. Kentucky, Oklahoma, and Mississippi have all passed laws to phase their income tax down to 0. So Governor of Louisiana is committed to doing that as well. He's got to pass a constitutional amendment to make that easier in the fall, but that expects to happen. And Missouri will have a measure on the ballot this fall that sets them on the path to take the income tax to 0.
All right, let me get State Senator Mark Johnson in to the conversation. Mark, can you talk a little bit about Americans for Prosperity Road to 0? Does that seem to be getting a lot of traction? And I know that you guys want to get down to 0 as far as income tax goes.
I think so. And Grover, great to hear you. Thank you for coming to Arkansas in the last month and helping us push this forward. We the governor's calling us into special session on Monday, and it should be maybe a 3-day session, and we will shave a couple of more tenths of a point off. We'll go from a top rate of 3.9% to 3.7%, retroactive to the first of this year. And then we'll be cutting the corporate tax effective the first of next year. It won't be retroactive on that. But this is this path to 0. And Grover came in and worked with Ryan Norris of AFP. And people are excited about it. Our Attorney General, Tim Griffin, calls the path to 0. He calls this our North Star. 0 is the rate we're wanting to go to. It is without a doubt, if we want to help Arkansas's economy and get the kind of economic development that we see in other southern states, especially Tennessee and Texas that have a 0 rate, we have to forget whether you agree with income taxes or not. To be competitive, we need to go to 0. And I think that we're doing it as rapidly and responsibly as we can. And I appreciate Grover's been a tremendous source of information and keeps us apprised of what's going on in other states that we can help emulate to get to that goal, that North Star of 0.
Yeah, let's roll back time. Let's get into the Dave Ellswick time machine and go back when Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House and Dick Armey was, I think he was majority leader at that time. And
yes.
Yeah, talk about where we were at then versus where we're at now.
Well, that was just the very beginning of the Republican Party, not just Reagan, but the Republican Party being committed to lower taxes. From 1932 until 1994, when Gingrich and Armey came into leadership, when the Republicans won the House and the Senate. That was a 62-year period between 1932, FDR comes in, and 1994. In those 62 years, Republicans won control of the House and Senate twice, once under Eisenhower, once under Truman. The rest of the time, the Democrats controlled usually both houses, but at least one. And so that was a very long period. 1994 is the year when Gingrich and Armey and all the Republicans, 96% of Republicans, signed the pledge never to raise taxes. That was a separate pledge, in addition to the list of 10 bills they wanted to pass, the contract with America, which they did pass. And they said, we're the Republican Party. We will not raise your taxes. There may be other foolish things we do from time to time, but that will not be one of them. And since then, Republicans have won control of the House and the Senate 18 years. Democrats 6. So we went from Democrats being in charge of the House and the Senate almost always to a third as often as the Republicans. So that really started the Republican Party, not just we'll cut taxes today, maybe we won't now, and then maybe we'll raise them later, to saying we are never raising taxes, and our job is to grow the economy out of any problems, not tax the people, but grow the economy. And that change in the Republican Party shifted control, and states over time, like Arkansas and West Virginia and others that had been deep blue became deep red. I mean, and some of the states that had been red decided, no, we're with the tax and spend people. And so that's been a very interesting. Maine used to be Republican, now it's Democrat and raises taxes a lot. Vermont used to be Republican, now it's a tax and spend 10% top rate state, heading down towards greater poverty.
Yeah, they definitely are doing that. So what do you see happening, since we're on the trajectory in most states to get to zero, or at least to 3%, and maybe a little bit lower than that? Where, how much longer do you think it's going to take? Because as more states do it, the states who refuse to do it are going to have to do it to stay in competition with the states who are doing it.
Well,
yes, and all the red states see what you just said. The blue states, not yet. People in the blue states, yes, but the blue state governments, no. Wednesday, 2 days ago, the governor of Montana was in D.C. to visit, and we talked. He is, next year, his plan is to take the state to a single rate income tax. They don't have a sales tax, so they're probably not going to zero, but they're taking the income tax to a single flat rate. And from there, they look to take it down as they can. North Dakota has 2 rates. They're looking to go to 1 rate. Ohio they're at 1 rate now. They went there just this last year. They're committed to going to zero with a new Republican governor. Missouri and Arkansas both had elections where the Republican governor won, saying our goal is to head to zero. Kansas, right next door, has passed a law that will take their rate to a flat rate of 4, down from above 5 down to 4, and then they'll look and see if they can go all the way to zero as well. So I think you're looking in the next 15 years, 20, not 8, but 20 states that are at zero, and another 10 that have made that commitment. So but yes, the blue states are flailing and they're not rational about it. But the people in the blue states, there's an initiative measure in California put there by the people to cut taxes. There's a measure in Oregon to roll back all the tax increases the Democrats put in. In Washington state, there's a measure on the ballot to roll back the tax increases that the Democrats put in. And in Massachusetts, where before I moved to the United States, I used to live in Massachusetts, and they have a measure on the November ballot to roll back the tax increase that the legislature put in. So in initiative states, blue states, you can save them through the initiative process.
Well, now, Grover, I was shocked when I saw the Massachusetts movement, which is so contradictory to things that are going on in, shall we say, sane places. That was it's like it's already shown some out-migration of the entrepreneurs and the job builders in their state. Isn't that true?
Yes, and this is what the left, the Democrats, fail to focus on. All you have to do is start talking about that, and you convince people to start making plans to move. All you have to do is threaten to do it, and even if you don't have the tax increase this year, by talking about it, you convince people in other states, as I make my list of where I move, that's not one of them. What hurts New York and California, yes, people are leaving, that's true. But the easier thing that happens is that the young kid in Ohio who has $1 billion idea that he wants to take and share with the world and be the next Microsoft, he's not moving to California anymore. 10, 20 years ago, he'd have been on a plane to California first. If you want to be a banker and change the world and be important, you don't get on the train and go to New York. You go to Texas.
And a lot of people have done just that. When we come back, I got to get a break in, Grover. I just want to ask you one last question.
Sure.
And that's how some of these blue states are doubling down, where they're going to try to punish the people who want to leave their states to go to what I term a fairer state as far as taxation. They want to take your money as you leave the state.
It's insane.
Yep.
Yeah, we got to talk about that here on the Dave Ellswick Show. Okay, back with you here on the Dave Ellswick Show. And just a quick, I got a text that I want to read to you that came from Terry Rice and State Senator Terry Rice. And it says, quote, "It's disrespectful if y'all don't credit the late Senator Stubblefield with trying to challenge the ATF misuse of local law enforcement to do the dirty work. We tried to get help in CCL committee."
Terry's absolutely right. And Terry, thank you for sending that. Senator, to mention, Dave, the late Senator Stubblefield, Gary Stubblefield, my dear friend, and his sat between us. He sat, I was on his left and Terry was on his right in the chamber. We're friends. We I mourn him every day. It's just a sad thing to lose him, but yeah, he was a leader on this, and he absolutely was dedicated to that. And it would be disrespectful. And thank you for mentioning that, Senator Rice. We miss him in so many ways. Things related to taxes and he got us to get the Article 5 resolution through. He was a leader on that, and can't say enough great things about my friend Gary Stubblefield, and how much I appreciate my friend Senator Rice for reminding us of that. Thanks, Terry.
All right, we've got, of course, from Washington D.C. today, from the folks at Americans for Tax Reform, that they're on the show with us. And Grover, I want to ask you how blue states, in fact, blue cities, to be honest with you, have come in and tried to pass these laws now that if you want to leave the state that you're at, they want to charge you extra taxes as you leave the state. This is insanity, if you ask me.
Well, it's instructive what countries have done that in the past. South Africa did it when they realized people no longer wanted to live there. Rhodesia did it before South Africa. The Weimar Republic in Germany did it, putting an exit tax on people leaving the country. You do that when you're pretty sure people want to leave your country. And instead of fixing why they want to leave, the other alternative is to build a Berlin Wall and shoot people who try and leave. That worked for dozens of years in Germany. It does slow it down. It does mean nobody goes into your state. Nobody moves in if they see that is a lobster trap and you ain't getting out if you go in. I think that is such a surrender. It's throwing up the white flag and saying we have no idea how to make things less awful for our citizens, so we will just build walls and keep them in. And of course, people will simply leave. And it's not just high-income people. It's people who want to work hard. It's people who think they've got a small business that someday could be a big business. And that's who you're damaging. That's who you're pushing out of the state. There's a reason why the Rust Belt, it's not like it rained and everything rusted up there. They had labor unions come in and make it impossible for companies to, compete internationally or in the country. They put in higher and higher taxes, which made businesses not be able to function, individuals not be able to function. And even the auto industry, the auto industry didn't move to other countries. It moved to other states. And the Rust Belt is never going to learn how to reform until they realize that the labor unions, the trial lawyers, and the corrupt big city machines are destroying their state. And it's not foreigners or Southerners that are causing their problem. They've created the heck for themselves. And they'll never fix it until they can look in the mirror and go, I destroyed Detroit with all the taxes and the regulations and the lousy government. That's what happened to Detroit. Nobody from Alabama hurt Detroit. Nobody from China hurt Detroit. Detroit destroyed Detroit. The labor unions up there and the government structures.
All right, I got 30 seconds, and our state senator Johnson wanted to ask you one last question. So here it is.
Grover, you're familiar with this California move and maybe other states too, where certain high-income people like football players, they play 2 games, NFL games in California. They think they can take part of their salary as California tax because they were in California for a brief period of time. How does that shake out and what can be done?
That is the laws. They've interpreted it. I think the only way to fix that is for the football and other sports to say, for starters, we will never have a championship game in California as long as you do that, because then they want to tax the winnings that the winning team gets as if it had something to do with California. So, no, that will be stopped when people stop building. Instead of subsidizing stadiums, states need to say, we're not going to be looting the players. And then people will build stadiums and play in those states. And I think the players should just refuse to play in any team, in any stadium or state that does that.
All right. Grover Norquist, thank you so much for your time today. We'll catch you down the road. We appreciate you.
Good to be with you.
All right. Bye-bye now. Grover Norquist, I'll let our state senator Mark Johnson leave. He's
Thanks,
taking
Dave.
off.
Enjoyed it. Two great segments. Call me back sometime soon.
We will.
All
We
right.
got to take some time to play some commercials. Let's do that, and then Clint Lancaster joins us next on the Dave Ellswick Show.
You want to keep that?
Yes.
I think I texted it to you, but that's a copy. It's got all the signatures on it.
I got to talk to her to make sure she turns off microphone.
I have because she can turn it off, or this one turns it off.
Yes.
I just want to have.
All right, 9:34 here on a Friday, which is always a great day to have because the weekend beckons. I will be on the air tomorrow morning starting at 7 o'clock from the car show over in Conway, and I'll be doing a couple hours live with you from that, and you'll get to hear some different people talk about their cars, and we'll talk to some people who are stopping by to be part of the show. We had a really good turnout last year. We'll have a good turnout this year, and looks like the weather is going to work with us. Although we're inside, it is always nice to have a little cooler weather, which we're going to have, and no rain. So that makes tomorrow look like a great day to have a car show. Right now, we're going to change gears just a little bit. I've been trying to keep up with the Secretary of State story, and Clint Lancaster is on the phone with me right now. And Clint, something happened yesterday, and how is that going to affect where we're going to in the future?
Well, good morning, Dave, and greetings from the middle of the Little Red River. I am wondering why the fish aren't biting, but that's another story. So yesterday the Arkansas Supreme Court issued an opinion in Norris v. Independence County. So to catch your listeners up just a bit, because I got a lot of things going that I talk about on your show quite a bit. The Independence County had passed a citizen-led initiative to go to hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots for their elections, and the quorum court waited for a year. Over a year, actually, and then on the eve of the primary, they voted to rescind that ordinance. And I don't think that the Constitution doesn't let them do that, which is what we filed a lawsuit about. But then the county said, "Hey, wait, no, Act 975, which is where the General Assembly said that the Court of Appeals has original jurisdiction of facial constitutional challenges." And Judge Tim Weaver, I have no bones about this. I mean, I think he did what he thought was right. He dismissed our case, and we took it up to the Arkansas Supreme Court. And it's like this perfect storm of a case. We put all our eggs in a basket, and we took it up there, and we got a unanimous opinion finding that Act 975 was unconstitutional. And so that's a huge win for Brian Norris. It's a huge win for Independence. It's a huge win for the people of Arkansas. I am continually baffled at the number of unconstitutional acts and other things that the General Assembly has passed in the recent years, with Tim Griffin saying, "Oh, this is all constitutional," but the Arkansas Supreme Court, in a unanimous opinion, disagreed. And so we're excited. It's a huge win. It's a feather in our cap, and it's also just showing that Brian Norris is the guy who just keeps putting himself out there, who just, regardless of caution to the wind, he's fighting for the people of Arkansas, and his story's not done yet. So we're excited, Dave.
All right. So what does this mean for the near future, and then perhaps, for some time down the road?
So what this means for the near future is that the Court of Appeals will continue to be a Court of Appeals and not a court of original jurisdiction. It also is a limiting factor on the General Assembly. It was, Justice Hyland wrote the opinion, and it was politely scathing to the General Assembly. I think they're still in session working on some fiscal stuff, but
but I'm unlike a lot of people. I do catch and release, but I do catch and release in hot oil.
Well, I do catch and release. I have no desire to eat any of these fish. I just enjoy catching them. But it's beautiful up here. There's a couple of bald eagles sitting out there at Winkley Shoals. And it's just cool to be out there and see, nature. So thank you, Dave, for having me on your show. And I hope you and Val have a great weekend.
Thank you, too. Okay, we'll talk to you. Talk to you later. It's 9:43. Let me get the break in, and I've got Razorback Zach sitting in the studio already. We'll just start his segment early, and that's coming up next on the Dave Ellswick Show.
All of summer, they've got all fall camp. They could turn this thing around. But my goodness, it looked rough.
Where were the problems at?
For me, wide receiver.
Okay.
You fix that, the offense is going to flow beautifully. You fix that, we're going to have a heck of a team.
Okay.
You don't fix it, you're in for a long year.
It's going to be a long season. Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, next hour I'll go into in depth and break down everything. But running back room looks strong. They're more of like the quiet type. They're not real boisterous, but they're solid.
Okay. Well, that I'd much rather have people that are not running their mouths but producing for you.
Yeah, and with Ryan Silverfield, this one might actually carry this year. The running back room might actually carry the offense. There's still a lot of questions regarding the quarterback. KJ Jackson, who's the returner, he may start week 1, but if this thing stalls out, don't be surprised if AJ Hill takes over mid-season.
So how did Jackson look?
about as solid as you would expect in a new offense.
Okay.
Up at Arkansas right now. He's the more consistent one, and he's the safer option. And I've said it for probably a couple of weeks now. But AJ Hill, his ceiling is a little bit higher, but the floor is a lot lower for him because he's never played in the SEC.
Okay.
So he's going to have a little bit more leeway.
So he's going to be like a true freshman?
Oh yeah, he's going to be green.
Okay.
He's going to be he's got experience. Don't get me wrong, he's got experience, especially running in Silverfield's style of offense. So he's got the experience in Silverfield's offense, but he doesn't have the experience playing against a Georgia or a Tennessee or a Texas.
Yeah, he doesn't have the SEC experience yet.
Right. But that wide receiver room, that worries me. There were a lot of drops. They weren't able to get separation. The chemistry with the quarterbacks isn't there yet. And I put that word "yet" there because, again, brand new offense, brand new coaching staff. They're still trying to find the right parts and the right chemistry.
And you still have a lot of hours to practice.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, this is just, again, everybody's going to sit there and go, well, you're dogging the football team and it's just a spring. It's an honest assessment of what I saw last week.
Yeah. It's you're looking at, you still have 4 months before the season.
Oh yeah. And fall camp, they're going to hit it even harder. So like I said, take what my assessment is as a grain of salt. But if you guys followed me for the past 10 years, I don't sugarcoat anything, that I'm a realist.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the offensive line, the offensive side of the ball, they're getting there. They're just not, it's not promising yet. The offensive line is still a work in progress. There's no dominant unit yet. They're still learning the new system. At best, you're looking at probably mid to upper lower tier in the SEC as far as the offensive line.
So what are we looking at our defense?
I haven't looked at that far yet, and I don't.
Okay.
I'm gonna look into it during the top of the hour break. But I've looked in it a little bit. But it's like it's like reading a book, and you don't want to read something because the truth is going to be there. That's kind of where I'm looking at the defense right now. It's like I want to read about it, and I need to read about it. I just don't want to hear what it has to say.
Right. Okay. All right. So a work in progress, not very positive for the spring game, the red and white game.
Dave, think about it. In years past, the spring game is a glorified practice. It's a glorified scrimmage. You're not going to see anything. Okay. You're not going to see any explosive, big fireworks. You're not going to see any.
Yeah, but you're expecting to see the, what's the best way to put this? The normal football plays should be carried out without much problem.
Yeah, exactly. And when you walk into a spring game, the one thing you want to see is how the team gels within each other. It's not there yet. I'm not saying it's not going to be there. It's not where you'd want it to be at this point. There were sparks. There were some good moments, but they were far and few between.
Were there any players that were getting fired up during the
they all, for what it's worth, they were all getting fired up in their own way. But I'm still waiting to see who that standout vocal leader is. You know how Brandon Allen was back in the day, or you had Ryan Mallett, Darren McFadden back in the early 2000s. Those kind of players that just kind of stand out. And I just don't see one yet. Quincy Rhodes might be. Even KJ might be one. But they're just, the confidence level for them right now is just not where it needs to be.
All right. Well, that's a fair assessment. That's not saying that they're, they smell like dog manure. Just that they look like a new team trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and essentially that's what it boils down to is it's a brand new system overhaul. So it's going to take a little time.
Were the sets differently for the offense?
Yeah. The offensive sets are a whole lot different than what they've ran the last couple of years because this one, it's more of a technical game than it is an X's and O's and methodical.
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Does make sense.
Because if you think about it, in the history of Arkansas's been kind of a running, run first, pass,
When
second.
you have to.
This one, they're switching it. This one, they're going to be kind of a little bit more balanced.
Okay.
I would expect that the running backs would have a heavier presence this year than they have in years past.
All right. Well, that's honest as well. I don't mind watching a team that runs out on the field if they do it consistently, and are successful with it. But if they get out and they can't run, and then they turn around and they can't pass, then you're looking at a long season.
Well, and you remember that was the biggest problem last year. We didn't have a running game at all.
Yeah.
Instead of running north and south, we were running sideline to sideline,
east and west.
The passing game, sketchy at best last year. Me personally, 4 wins is probably the best you're going to get if you're looking at the team and basing it right now. 6 wins could probably be the ceiling. Anything beyond 6, build a statue.
Okay, so do you see any, beat down games?
I have a couple, but I'm going to save them for later.
Okay, in the future.
Yeah.
Of what?
There's 2 games. There's 2 games that I want everybody to keep their eyes on. And that will tell you how the rest of the season is going to go. And it's game 2, game 3. Game 2,
Georgia.
Game 2, you go to Salt Lake City to play Utah.
Oh, Utah, that's right.
And then because they're going to be ranked.
Yeah, but then you come home and play Georgia.
There you go, and that's the big one. That's the one that I've got circled. It's not Tennessee, it's not Texas, it's not LSU, which by the way is now back on Black Friday. They now put the Battle of the Boot back on Black Friday. So
that's good.
But it's going to be that Georgia game, and that's going to be the one where that's going to kind of tell you where their mentality is going to be. A couple of years ago, Texas A&M, when KJ Jefferson fumbled on that 1-yard line,
oh my God,
that turned everything on its head.
Season,
and even followed into the following season. This one could do the same thing. It's not going to hurt them next season because again, you're going to have a whole nother year under your belt. Things are going to progress because, like we talked about here last year, the biggest jumps from year 1 to year 2.
Yep.
Okay. I'm not worried about next year yet. Let's just get through this one first.
All right. Now, as far as recruiting goes, are we done recruiting for this new season?
Football, you're never done recruiting.
Okay.
But yeah, for this season, team's a lock. We're ready to go. He's now recruiting for 2028 right now. But at the end of the day, the team where it sits right now is about where you'd expect it for a brand new team. Just tweaking it just a little bit more. I want to see more. That's where I want to look for it. I don't want to say chemistry, but passion.
Well, that is important.
Yeah,
it is. It's important.
The chemistry is going to come the more reps you have together. I just want to see heart.
Yeah,
more passion.
Does the defense have the heart where, like, who was the great center that we had that went to play with Detroit?
Frank Ragnow.
Okay, Ragnow. I mean, you knew what he was going to do. He was a competitive SOB. He really, really was. And he carried that over into the NFL. One of the best centers that played in the NFL. He's just had so many injuries that but it's not going to be possible for him to continue.
He's had almost 10 years in?
Yeah.
See, when Ragnow got drafted in 15, 16, somewhere in there. So yeah, it's standard lifetime for a center, a healthy-ish.
Yeah, because you're beat on constantly.
Oh yes, the defense though, as a whole unit, I'm very confident in the defense as a unit itself.
Okay.
There are specific positions though where their success could be inflated because the wide receivers are not as good and are not as settled into their roles as they should be.
Yeah, when you're practicing for, let's say you're going to face Georgia on a weekend and you're practicing, you're running Georgia's plays basically.
Yes.
And you better have the talent to be able to do that.
The only downside is if you're running somebody for like Georgia or I'll even say Texas, they've got more speed than we do on our practice squad, on our scout teams. And that's where that difference is. So you're planning on, okay, this guy's going to move this fast, when in fact he's about 3 or 4 seconds faster.
Yeah, which is an eye-opening experience.
Do you remember the movie The Replacements?
Oh, yeah.
Gene Hackman said it best. Think fast, move even faster. You'll live a lot longer.
You won't get killed. That's
Right.
exactly right. All right, we'll take a break. News is coming up. Razorback Zach will be back with us. We'll talk about the Razorback baseball team. They went into that weekend series, took 2 out of 3. We'll talk about that. I think it's Ole Miss this weekend. And then we got who do we got at the end of the season? Kentucky. And they've been playing very well here of late. We'll talk about that. We'll even get into some fast pitch softball as well here on the Dave Ellswick Show. All right, let's get back to the Dave Ellswick Show, final hour of a Friday show. I'm going to get out of here right after I get off the air today. Go home, pick up the missus, and we're running up to Branson to do a little bit of shopping and then heading back down here later tonight. So
Nice.
you're going to be doing this and that and a little bit of other. I wouldn't come back tonight if I didn't have to be on early in the morning at the car and truck show. But I'll be there. I will be there. I'll be on at 7 o'clock talking to you and smiling about it and doing it. Steve's going to be heading over a little later on today to the facility there in Conway, and he'll set up and test all the equipment. And all I'll have to do is walk on in there and do the show tomorrow.
Nice.
So looking forward to that. That other voice you're hearing is Razorback Zach. You heard him in the end of the last half hour. And he gave you an honest assessment of what he saw in the red and white game at the spring practice from last weekend. And to be honest, I think is about what we kind of expected it to look like.
Yeah, for the most part. Everybody that has, like I said, everybody's followed me for 10 years. First off, thank you, because this is the 10th year anniversary of ITHP. So
Good.
It's a big deal for me and MC. Years past, we've been known for offense. Darren McFadden, Ryan Mallett, the Allen brothers. Now you're looking at a defense-heavy Arkansas team. This one's led by the defense now. Which I've been screaming that for years that we've needed a defense. If we can get the offense up and going, the run game has potential and it can stabilize the offense.
They got some pretty good running backs.
They do, but it's a run. It's going to be a run first team, mainly because they're the most stable of the offense.
So we're
right now.
rolling back towards Houston Nuts.
Yeah, you're gonna see a little bit of what it used to be like with the three-headed monster back in the early 2000s with Houston Nutt. The swing factor for this whole season, though, is the passing game. If you can get a quarterback back there, whether it be A.J. Hill or K.J. Jackson, and they can settle in, they can lead this offense, you're looking at probably 8-4, 7-5 as the ceiling on a good day. If everything falls into place, everybody stays healthy, you're looking at probably 7-5, 8-4. If the offense struggles, 6-6, 5-7,
4-6, 4-8.
4-8 is going to be the floor. If you do anything below 4, I'm going to be completely. I'm going to have to hit the panic button a little bit.
Okay.
And of course, everybody's like, "Well, it's only his first season." I get that, but with the amount of talent that's on this team and the way everything is playing out right now, you're going to have to hit 4 wins at least.
Listen to what I'm going to say closely, because I don't want to be misunderstood. But Cignetti changed the whole conversation about how long does it take to turn a program around. When he came, he got Indiana into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Now they didn't do very well, but then they won the national championship the next year.
Now, Dave, they didn't just do that.
They went undefeated.
They went undefeated. They won the Peach Bowl. They won the Big Ten. They got the Heisman winner. I mean, their trophy case filled up for the first time in 50 years.
Did. Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
but the problem is, Indiana fans, now what?
They expect it.
Now what? So what happens if
they're going to expect?
Again, but what if he misses this year? Then what? I mean, it's the same question, though. It's the same question that I threw out there for Calipari next year going into the tournament. We'll talk about that in a few minutes.
He's got to get past the Sweet
If he
16.
doesn't get past the Sweet 16, does the fan base start to turn on him?
Mm-hmm.
Do the questions start going, okay, we're Kentucky fans right about Calipari? It's the same kind of – now you're comparing apples and oranges because they're two different sports, but still.
Well, let me tell you what. Kentucky fans that are sitting out there, and if they're up – if they want to get rid of Calipari to put the guy in that they put in, they're foolish.
Yeah, how's that $8 million working out for him?
Yeah,
right now?
that's not that.
I was
wasn't
at
pretty.
I was at the Arkansas-Kentucky game at Bud Walton. I'm going to tell you right now, Kentucky's head coach is the biggest cootie I have ever seen in my life.
Which means what?
He reminds me of Tony V
Okay.
with Tennessee.
Oh, all right.
Just the way he interacts with the refs and everything, it gives off that Tony V vibe, you know.
He just doesn't have a lot of dirt to kick on him.
No, but he whines awful lot.
Yeah,
He whines awful lot. But no, let's get back to this football team because that's what everybody's going to be looking forward to because the baseball team is struggling. Right now.
W's, whether you like it or not, are the name of any game.
Oh yeah, and but again, there's a whole lot more going on with the athletic program as a whole right now. But everybody's going to be the focus is going to be on this football team. At the quarterback position, you know, we've talked about AJ Hill and KJ Jackson. Those are the two top guys. With KJ, you've got the offense is controlled, it's methodical. But with Hill, it becomes volatile but explosive. If they're going to start Jackson, I'm almost 100% sure they're going to start KJ. If for some reason he can't get that ball into the end zone, they're going to go with AJ Hill. Or he gets hurt. They're going to go with AJ Hill. That becomes tempting because I want to see what this kid can do under pressure against a Georgia, Tennessee, or even a South Carolina. We've got South Carolina back on the schedule this year.
Home or away?
That's going to be here in Fayetteville.
Okay. It's a winnable game then.
Nah, I would not.
Be.
It should be. But based on how they've progressed versus how we have, Shane Beamer might actually have.
We turned that team around somewhat. They're not made the full 180 yet.
Oh no, they haven't turned. No, they're more like 90 degrees maybe. You know, they've turned the corner. They just haven't hit the gas yet. The run game is going to be the backbone of this offense. Period. You're going to be able to protect the quarterback a whole lot more. You're going to slow the pass rush down, and it sets up the play action. You know, and that's been the biggest problem. Last year, that's all we could do was run the play action. That was it, and it failed every single time. Every single time. And don't get me wrong, I love Bobby P. All right, his offense just wasn't working last year.
Yeah.
For some reason, it just was not clicking. But that also goes back to, did the players know that Sam Pittman had already let go of the rope?
Now, I don't know. What about where did Petrino go?
He's at North Carolina as their offensive coordinator now under Bill Belichick.
Yeah, okay. Well, that'd be interesting.
That's going to be an interesting one to watch.
That can be a trash dumpster fire.
The hidden variable, that could be. It could be a gym or it could be a dumpster fire.
That's exactly right.
I want to see. I may just watch a North Carolina game just to see how these two interact, just to see the not just the team, but just how those two interact with each other.
Yeah,
I may have to make a couple of phone calls over to Chapel Hill and see what I can find out.
Let me tell you what. A lot of people don't think that the head coach over there is very volatile. Oh, yes, he is.
Well, if he ain't, dadgum sure Bobby P is.
Yeah, well, I'm just telling you, everybody said that, when he was with the Patriots, that he had lost the fire. And maybe to a little extent, and Vrabel came in and brought it back with him, and as far as that was concerned. But ridiculous as far as if you look to the future.
Well, Mike Vrabel's got his own problems right now.
Yeah. Keep your worm in your pants, brother.
I wasn't going to say that.
I'm just saying. I don't get it, man.
I wasn't going to go that route.
Two stories that I have seen dealing with sports is him and talking about these female basketball coaches that are now going out and having sexual liaisons with their players. It's crazy.
That's why I stick to college.
I mean, well, that is college. A lot of it.
I just yikes is all I'm going to say.
I mean, if there was one thing you didn't have to worry about was a lesbian affair with Pat Summitt.
No, but Pat Summitt, she was intimidating anyway.
She was great.
Her and who's the LSU's head coach right now? Kim Mulkey.
Yeah.
They're intimidating.
Yeah.
You know, Pat, when she was with Tennessee, you don't mess with her.
Yeah, what's her name over at South Carolina? It's pretty.
Dawn Staley?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's all right. But
she's a little bit intimidating as far, but yeah, those two are probably the top.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I would have, and no offense to Kelsey Music here at Arkansas, but I would have loved to have Kim Mulkey on the Hill. That would be awesome to see.
Well, it'd be. Look, again, I'll go back and repeat something I said in the last segment when we were on, and that is Cignetti has changed the way fans look at sports. This now with the portal and everything.
Oh, yeah.
You can turn a team around in 1 year.
And you don't need 30, 40, $50 million in order to do it. Because I know dang well he didn't spend that much on that team.
Yeah.
Because they were a bunch of 2-stars coming out of JMU.
Yeah. Yeah, Mendoza wasn't making $6 million before he threw a pass. That's
no.
for sure.
Now, I'm hoping he does well in Vegas.
If the left side of his line protects him, he'll do fine.
But
if they don't, and that's something that the Raiders have been bad at recently, it's not like back in the 60s and the 70s.
Right.
It'd be interesting to see what he does.
Yeah, and like I said, bottom line as far as this football team goes, it looks rough right now. It shows a lot of promise, but everybody's just going to have to be a little bit patient.
Well,
all right. If you drop the game to Utah, that's fine. If
you should have known that it was going to be a game of patience.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Dave. When it comes to football, I don't have patience. Look, and come July, when I'm sitting in here, I'm gonna be swimming in the Kool-Aid.
Well, here's where
I do it I'm guilty of it every year.
You tell me if you're like me. There are some things that I can say, well, he's in the SEC now, and he's got to understand that, all right, the quarterback or whatever.
Right.
But if you're a player and you're making mistakes that you learned how to get around when you were in high school, and you're still making those mistakes, we need to get somebody else in your place.
Yeah, if you're still making fundamental mental mistakes, the very basic mistakes of throwing an interception.
You're the defensive end, and you let the runner get around the edge. That's unacceptable.
Exactly. If you're still making what I'll call Pee Wee League level mistakes, somebody's going to have to reevaluate. But Dave, you're absolutely right, and I'm in the exact same way. And anybody that knows anything about the game of football, it will probably back us both up on that.
Just to be honest, that's probably my worst personality trait when I watch baseball.
We're not going to get into personality traits when I watch
baseball. But I'm just saying, I played the game until I was 21 years old, and you should not be forgetting to hit your cutoff man when you're playing Major League Baseball. Okay,
that's not just professional league either. Yeah. That Arkansas is guilty of that last year.
I'm just saying, and you shouldn't all stop in foul zone and nobody call the ball.
That's a low blow there, Dave.
Oh, well,
no, but it's true. It's true. No, it is. It is true. And I know we're up against the break, but I wanted to ask you something too. Did you see the big news coming out of college basketball?
Oh yeah,
76 teams. Why? Nobody wants that.
That's about 50% of the available teams.
If you're going to do it, then just open it up to everybody.
That's what I said.
Do it 132 teams and don't even have a regular season.
Add an extra week because that's all it would take.
Yeah.
Be honest. It would be like Indiana basketball used to be, and that's always fun.
And nobody wants.
Not IU, Indiana high school.
Basketball. Don't get me wrong. I love the big dance. All right, it's one of the best times of year. But you're already at 64 teams. Leave it like that. Nobody's going to want to watch 2 weeks worth of playing games.
Well, there's still money involved.
Okay, but if you're gonna if you're gonna play the playing games, you're going to take on the number 1 seed. You're going to get stomped out anyway. So, I mean, what's the point?
However, people will watch to see the number 1 seed get their butt kicked.
Well, as long as it's Duke, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. It's 10:21. It's the Dave Ellswick Show, back with Razorback Zach in a moment. Okay, back with Razorback Zach, and we've talked about the football team about as much as we can for what we've seen thus far. So we'll put them in the rear view mirror now.
Yeah, now it's going to be one of those, it's kind of a wait and see game now because now you're just waiting on summer workouts and summer OTAs and then fall camp.
You just want to make sure that the guys that are coming in to play are doing exactly what the weight coach says and the dietary people say. The players have to understand that it's SEC football and it's serious. I mean, this is when your fans get serious. And the SEC is going to get more serious because the Big Ten has typically now won all the big awards.
Yeah. The SEC's kind of fallen off. And I mean, when you get too big for your britches, Dave.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that when you've added, you've added Georgia, Oklahoma, Texas, not Georgia, but Oklahoma and Texas. And those two teams in and of themselves should have raised the caliber of your conference.
I mean, and they do, Because think about it. I mean, the renewed rivalry. Number one, you keep Texas and Oklahoma together, but the renewed rivalry with, and I'm not just saying this with Arkansas, but look at LSU and A&M. You look at Texas and Alabama. Look at that rivalry coming up. You know, that's starting to bloom, and all the and the history of, you know, Texas, the history of Oklahoma, of when they were in the Big Eight and then the Southwest Conference. Those two teams right there are like blue bloods of college sports.
Yeah, they are.
Say what you will about Oklahoma, but they are a blue blood in college sports.
Well, they are in football.
Okay. But at the end of the
NCAA
day,
football.
it's not about what's in the rearview mirror.
No, it's what the future
So
is going to
the
bring.
Big Ten, and
NIL.
I'll say it, the Big Ten's looking to the future, and we're looking, and Arkansas fans are just as guilty. SEC's living on nostalgia. Oh, we're the best team and the best conference in the country.
Well, the national champion in college football and college basketball and a lot of other sports as well would beg to differ with them at that point.
If the SEC's not careful, the Big Ten's going to take it over. Now, I will say that from a baseball standpoint, you may not see a Big Ten champion.
Too cold up there, man. I'm just telling you, you can't really
But
get
what are they
serious
gonna-
about playing until you get into this time of the year.
But Dave, I mean, what are they going to brag about? Hey, I'm the hockey champion. Not everybody watches hockey.
Well, you know, a sport that's coming on that I think that the Big Ten understands about it and that the SEC hasn't understood about it is women's volleyball.
Yeah. Well, they're getting a grasp on it. But here's the other thing, too. I've got a friend. I've got a friend who is a huge A&M fan. And watch my phone light up when I say this. They're bragging about an equestrian national title.
Yeah, and I question that.
I mean, how low on the food chain do you have to be to start bragging about we're national champions in equestrian sports?
Yeah, but you know what? You expect a certain amount of success and talent for LSU, and up until the last about 3 or 4 years, they've met that challenge.
They have. LSU has done it. Georgia's done it. Bama did it in the 2000s, or in the early 2000s with Nick Saban. Florida had some sparks with Billy Donovan for a couple of years. Yeah. I mean, for a while, a lot of different teams had success. But you see teams
continue with that success.
There you go. How do you stay consistent? How do you stay relevant? Look at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's football program was dead and a laughingstock 10 years ago.
That's another good example of
Clark Lee comes along, and now they're averaging 8-9 wins a season now.
It's huge. It's huge.
They used to be a pushover. People, look at Bama. Bama walked in and said, "Oh, we can beat Vandy."
Got shocked.
Not so fast, my friend.
All right, it's 10:30. That means we got to get to the news. Let's do that. Then we'll be back, and we got a half hour left. All right.
Yeah, my daughter is going to be at her first baseball game this weekend. Oh, yeah. She's been to a football game. It's hard to get her to a basketball.
All right. Got 25 minutes to sit here and talk about other than football. Razorback baseball. I think that the Razorbacks are a little bit better, positioning themselves a little bit better. This Ole Miss 3-game series is going to go a long way.
Yeah, this is the final home series of the year. And then they go to Lexington, and then, of course, you go to Hoover immediately following. I think they're going to be in a regional, Dave. Whether they host one, there's a lot of things have to play into it. They're going to have to win the regional if they're going to host a super.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a path to Omaha. It's not going to be easy this year. Maybe
That's what they need to get the team to really focus on what they got to do.
Yeah, I would not look past Ole Miss or Kentucky to end the regular season. However, they're going to have to step it up in a big way if they're going to make Omaha, because it doesn't get any easier. I mean, even these regionals, think about it. Think about how many teams that have been elite, that have been, I guess you call them now blue bloods of college baseball, that have gotten bounced in a regional.
Yeah.
Look at Arkansas is one of them. Arkansas, and say what you want. Even though Arkansas has never won a national championship in baseball, they're a blue blood in baseball. They are.
Well, everybody expects them to have a great team to be fielded every year.
When you have, but here's the thing. When Arkansas struggles, it opens up a lot of eyes and goes, something's up.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I said this a couple of weeks ago. Did we miss on some of these recruits coming out of the portal? In fact, I think you were the one that brought it up.
I think so, especially in the pitching.
Yeah. Gabe Gackle's okay. I think he's going to be fine. If they continue the way they have and not get swept this weekend or next weekend, which I don't see happening, they're going to host a regional. They're going to be in the top 16 RPI. They're going to host a regional. Super regional, it's tough, but it's winnable. A legit expectation is for them to beat one of the final 8 teams in Omaha, but they're going to have to play a dang near perfect rest of the season.
Flawless baseball.
Yes. As of right now, if the bats go cold, we're going to be done before Super Regional.
Luckily, the bats haven't been cold, at least recently.
They're turning a corner, but there are some of these guys just have not. And again, I've said it all season long. I feel like 90% of it is between their ears.
Well, yeah,
they've got the talent, but they're either getting their egos involved, or they're just not. They're not focusing the way they should, and I don't understand. I don't know where the disconnect is, because this is not looking like one of your run of the mill Omaha ending teams for Arkansas.
Well, that's because, to be honest, over the last decade, you've had a couple of players always on the Razorbacks that are burning like all get out.
Oh, yeah.
Either at the plate or in the field. Now, we got pretty good gloves in the field right now. That kid that plays shortstop got a cannon on his arm.
It's not Kozel. Who is it?
But he does.
I know who you're talking about.
He's got a cannon. He can take that ball deep at shortstop and throw the ball player out going to first base by 3 steps.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen unless you can really fire that ball over the field. People don't realize how far it is to throw the ball from deep into the shortstop or the third base side all the way to first base.
Oh yeah, you're going to have a rocket if you're going to make that throw.
There's a lot of distance involved there.
If the pitching can settle down and get hot right at the right time. And I'm not talking about in the SEC tournament. One thing, and I will die on this hill. And anybody that wants to argue with me, please find me on Facebook, and I will have this argument with you. the SEC tournament, if you're a lock for the postseason, the SEC tournament is the most pointless conference tournament anywhere.
It's a detriment then because it can screw your whole rotation.
If you're a one and done, and I'm not saying throw it, but throw the game, then yeah, be a one and done, and then rest your guys for the regional. But if you have to win that tournament to get in, you're playing with a high risk. All right. Arkansas is always usually always a lock for the postseason.
Well, the head coach for the Razorback baseball program,
DVH,
yeah, he even admits that that Hoover's not a big goal for him.
It's not. I mean, because think about it, Dave. And when he rides off into the sunset, which will probably be after the end of next year, he'll get his 1,000 wins. Hopefully, he'll have a national championship by then.
I hope so.
But when he rides off into the sunset, okay, and they finally build the statue of him outside of Baumwalker, what's the one thing he's going to be known for? It's not going to be the division titles. It's not going to be the conference titles. How many times he's won in Hoover?
The regional, super regional.
It's not going to be any of that. It's going to be how many national championships did he win? What did he do for the program? And just like Norm DeBryan. Norm DeBryan took this program from Frank Broyles and said, we're building a baseball program.
Yeah.
Because all that money when he came in was all going to football. Like him and I don't know how many guys have heard the story of the rise of Razorback baseball, but Norm DeBryan and Frank Broyles went round and round to get this program funded. And when Norm decided to retire, he handpicked Dave Van Horn.
Yeah, he did.
He went to Nebraska and went, here, blank check. Do what you need to.
I wonder if Dave has a name in mind for.
If it's who I think it is, I don't see it.
Oh, really?
Everybody thinks it's going to be Tony Vitello.
Oh, well.
I think it's going to be the kid out of Georgia. I think it's going to be Wes Johnson.
We'll have to see how well the Giants do this year.
I don't know about that one, but
he's the first college ball coach that went from college to the pros.
And that could open up a whole lot of doors if he's successful. And so let me ask you this, because I know we're jumping around, but let me ask you this then, since you're a Major League Baseball fan. If he gets to the World Series, not wins it, but if he gets there, what does that do for now the college coaches that are looking to make the jump? Does that kick that door down? I mean,
it opens it up significantly that some young blood would do good. Well, young blood always helps when it comes in. There's several programs in I should call them programs, but several businesses in the major leagues that could use some young talent taking over the teams. Watching the changes in for head coaches in baseball is like watching the changes of head coaches in football.
Yeah,
it's the same dudes.
Who was the long manager for the Yankees there for a long time? I know that if you say
Billy Martin.
No, the other one, the one from the early 2000s and that time frame. Real big name.
Yeah, the catcher.
The manager.
That's who you're talking about.
But guys like him, the one from the Cubs for the longest time. Though, I mean, you're going to have a guy that knows what he's doing. But now that you've got somebody like Tony V that made the jump from an assistant in Arkansas to head coach at Tennessee, now he's in the majors. That's going to reroute a whole lot of people.
Yeah, the big thing for learning curve from a coach that's at college level to the pro level is that when you get to the pro level, you don't look at a ball player and talk to them the same way you talk to a college player.
No.
These are professional athletes.
So I know more about football than I do baseball. These guys that are on these major league rosters for like the Mariners, the Angels, and all that, they have to come up through single A, double A, triple A, right? They don't automatically start like they do in football.
No,
where they're a rookie.
No.
Okay, that's the other key that you got to think about. These guys have been playing in a farm system and have earned their way to these starting rotations. Not just, okay, you're drafted, so you're
which may mean that this may have opened the door for college coaches starting in AA or AAA.
That was where I was headed with it.
To head up to Major League Baseball, because there's a learning curve there just in the management.
Well, look at how young and I say he's young. He looks young. The manager is for the Travs down here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, seriously, when you go see the Travs play, I like to go see AAA ball. I'm not a big fan of AA, just because in the AA, you've got so many people above these players that they're going to pay money to play the game that, they tell the coach, yeah, pitch so-and-so, tomorrow, but he only throws 60 pitches.
Oh, so you're talking about putting them on a pitch count?
Yeah, there's all kinds of things that they do. If X, Y, or Z gets to the plate, put the hit and run on, and let's see how he does.
You know what? I don't
being forced into hit and run.
I'm a casual. I'll admit this. I'm a casual baseball fan. I eat, sleep, and breathe football, but baseball, yeah. I'm a little bit of more of a casual fan. The one thing I don't like about the game of baseball is the automatic walk.
Oh yeah, just give a pass.
Yeah, just give a pass. Why?
Well, because it has happened before that the guy goes to throw the ball to home plate and throws it beyond the catcher's reach, and suddenly whoever's on third base comes in and scores. Game over.
Right, but couldn't you? I mean, put that in the context of a football player, like we were talking about earlier in the show. If he makes that mistake, you might want to start looking somewhere else. But you can't, and I get it. You can't just pull a pitcher based on one mistake. You have to see if he gets out of the jam, whether if it's his pitch count, whether it's where he is in the batting order, that kind of thing. So I know, like I said, and I know you're comparing apples to oranges here, but
two different games, exactly.
It is. It's two different games, and I get that. It just there are certain things about baseball that just kind of like, come on, you can make it a little bit better. Like these AI umps that they have now. Leave it alone.
Well, that's going to happen all the time. The plate umpire I believe will always be there, but he'll have something on his wrist that if it tells you that was a strike. All right.
Okay, but doesn't that take away from the human element of it?
Yeah, well,
because if he calls it right though, Dave, who are we going to yell at?
But you want to take out human error as much as you can, so that you don't end up with a completely boneheaded call, like they had what was it, Kansas City and I'm trying to think who they were playing at the time.
Oh, you're talking about
St. Louis.
St. Louis.
And they called somebody out at first base, and he was safe by 3 steps.
Yeah, that I can understand. But I'm talking, the whole ball and strike call, that's part of the game of baseball, is that human element that and it's a small error. It's a small, in the grand scheme of things, you know this. It's a small error.
They get it right about 95% of the time.
But it's the 5% that makes it entertaining, because you want to sit there and I'm not going to say cuss at the rep.
Unless you're on the losing side.
Well, even still, I've seen it in Razorback baseball games where they'll get a call wrong and then turn around and give, have a gimme for the other guys to make up for the bad call.
And I've seen a bad call blow the door open for the other team to just run.
I've seen
right past.
I've seen that one too. Hey, real quick though, and I know we're coming up on last break. University of Arkansas cut 2 sports programs for the first time since the early 90s. And then they had a coaching change, a very abrupt coaching change that I'm looking into that, because something about that just didn't seem right.
I agree. There's something that's going on when it comes to the gymnastics program, the women's gymnastics program, that you had a coach that had a stellar year. I mean, a stellar year. One of the best years that Arkansas has had in the recent memory, and they walk. Why?
But here's the thing: and she's a fantastic coach. I've met her. I've talked to her. An Olympic gold medalist.
Uh-huh.
The way it went down is what's throwing me for a loop. You cut the tennis program, and it's not just one. It's the whole program's been cut. I want to say they've lost $2.5 million in revenue by cutting those two programs. Like lose it or save it or whatever they call it now. And then 48 hours later, she steps down because she wants to spend more time with kids, but her husband steps up.
Yeah, it's.
I'm not saying there's anything shady there.
No. I'm just wondering what was going through her mind.
Either she didn't get a raise that she was expecting.
I think that probably had something to do with it.
Or do you think gymnastics is on the chopping block?
No, I don't think
because
so.
they're trying. The University of Arkansas is so desperate to be competitive in football. They're cutting sports programs.
You know, that wouldn't surprise me.
I'm hoping I'm wrong, and I have a history of being wrong a lot more than I'm being right.
Football is the lifeblood of most women's sports.
It is, but the act of desperation right now. Come on, I mean, are you going to cut? You've cut that swimming and diving. You've cut tennis. What's the next one? Soccer, golf.
Yeah.
Anything above that, they're stupid to cut. Volleyball, heck no.
No, and you don't cut, fast pitch softball.
If you cut fast pitch softball, you're going
to that's just growing exponentially.
You're going to irritate. I was going to say something that I shouldn't say it on air, but you're going to make a lot of people mad if you start cutting softball, volleyball, things like that.
Yeah, I agree. In the sports that generate a lot of TV revenue,
and people will sit there and tell you, softball doesn't generate that much revenue for Arkansas. They haven't in the past.
Yeah,
now
they're
starting to gain traction. Women's basketball, same thing. Just because we're in a downward turn right now doesn't mean that they're not generating revenue. When they're good, they're just like any other sport that's up there. They're gonna generate it, but that you've got to win. MC says it best all the time during basketball season: winning cures all.
Well, he does.
Winning cures, and he says it all the time. He says, "Winning cures all." That's it.
It's always. Don't ever think it isn't. It is always about the W's.
Exactly.
Always. I can attest to that just from when I played in college. All right. W's and let me just be honest. I went to Morehead State University. It was not, a major player in baseball, but I'll tell you what, you damn well better win.
Oh yeah,
I'm just
and on this other break, I've got a question for you to kind of wrap up.
Okay, let's take a break. Let's break, and then we'll come back and we'll finish it up for a Friday on the Dave Ellswick Show. Summer Nationals. Back with you here on the Dave Ellswick Show. Okay, so Razorback Zach has a question for me.
Yeah, so you know we were talking about viewership and fans getting excited and everything, bringing in revenue. Let's put this in perspective of Indiana.
Yeah,
if Indiana never hired Cignetti, never won the national championship, never won in these last 48 months or whatever, would they have been known as the team? As the new America's team as they are right now?
No, absolutely not.
They'd still be obscurity.
Yeah, absolutely. I expect that if they've done well the last 2 years, if they have a third year of what the first 2 years have been like, I would expect that you're going to see some of those open areas at the football stadium suddenly going to be filled in with suites.
Oh yeah. They're going to have to do something.
They're going to have to put more butts in there.
I need to look and see how big their stadium is, their capacity, because I haven't seen it in comparison to like Neyland or.
Let's just put it this way: it doesn't even come close to the big house in Michigan.
Well, I don't think anybody. I think Neyland is the closest one that could come close to Michigan, but that kind of goes back to my point is, Cignetti didn't spend millions and millions of dollars on NIL to get this team. He didn't, he came from JMU. Well, I guess at the time when he left, they were they were making the jump from Division II to Division I.
Yes.
I mean, that right there tells you that this guy, nobody knew who Cignetti was before he came to Indiana.
I had no idea who this guy was.
And now he is the hottest coach out there.
Yep.
Same thing, Indiana. Nobody thought Indiana would do anything. And all of a sudden, everybody's watching them because they're winning every week. And they're finding ways to win. Where if you're Arkansas, they're finding ways not to lose.
Yeah, well, the whole thing about, Arkansas is I think everybody thought that if they had the weight room, if they had this, if they had that, people would want to come to Arkansas.
I mean, facilities do play a big factor in recruiting.
But there's more to it than just that. I mean,
but recruiting now versus where it was when Houston Nutt was here, when Bobby P was here the first time as head coach, it's not the same anymore.
Okay, so IU, maximum seating following renovations that created the horseshoe layout that they got now.
Right.
53,524.
So basically a war memorial stadium.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll increase. They go a third year.
They'll be just like Arkansas soon. I look for them to go up to the 73 to 75,000.
I could see it. Put another level on top of. Yep. I can see it.
Make it look like Soldiers Field does now that they got a UFO sitting on top of your
right. Dave, it's been fun, my friend.
Okay, we got to get out of here. I will talk to you tomorrow morning at 7, but I'll also talk to you Monday at 7 a.m. on the Dave Ellswick Show.
Woo pig.
Okay. That was good. That was good hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, it's always fun.